in my drink. Yo, this bitch is drunk on my drink. Yo, this trick is smoking my dang. I want her to stop, but I can't. I'm leaning to the side, man. I'm leaning to the side, man. Yo, everybody vibing, the lights flashing, ain't nobody hiding. I'm full of passion. I see this chick smiling with her action. She said she from an island. I'm just passing. I said stop lying. We started laughing. Girl, what you drinking? I'm on that captain. Now we on pink panties with a napkin. I got a blunt dipped in brandy that we passing. Now we leaning to the side in the bass bay. She feeling on my thigh, my chain swinging. Feeling alright now. The game changing, right on time now. We both swaying, do that new style now. Bojangles, I wanna see your tatas. Those jangles, what about your now guys? I need angles, call me your Popeye. Grab your ankles, move like chaka chaka. When it's anal, I got to get ya. And it's painful, split you like a swisher. With a label, you know we can make it without being naked. We can make them think we fake it, shake it, make me take it. Yo, this chick remind me my drink. Yo, this bitch is drunk on my drink. This trick is smoking my dang. I want her to stop, but I can't. I'm leaning to the side, man. 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 If you got a cup, put that shit up. Lean it to the side. Lean it to the side. If you got a fat cat and your drawers and bra match, lean it to the side. Lean it to the side. If you just got off of work and your fucking feet hurt, lean it to the side. Lean it to the side. If you shine fly and everybody know your ass high, lean it to the side. Lean it to the side. If it's getting hot and you drink Henny on the rocks, lean it to the side. Lean it to the side. If you a hot girl and you can stop and make it pop, lean it to the side. Lean it to the side. Yo, this chick remind me my drink. Yo, this bitch is drunk on my drink. Yo, this trick is smoking my dang. I want her to stop, but I can't. I'm leaning to the side, man. 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 Yes, I am drinking. Recording this shit. Yeah. This damn green, man, it's got me sitting sideways. This damn lean, man, it's got me sitting sideways. I'm on the scene, man, I'm sitting sideways. You don't feel like me, that's why you looking at me sideways. I'm riding clean and I'm flying down the freeway. Nowhere to be, so I'm taking me a free day. If it's a driving, best to listen to what he say. I'm higher than a child on the first day of pre-K. Drive slow, I ain't tripping on the delay. The cup I'm sipping on is giving dumb anyway. Anyway, the optimal action spilling on my khakis instead of an ashtray. Brush it off and keep it moving on. Shift my attention to what else I could be doing wrong. Sure, it's someone on my phone I could be screwing on. So you alone? Bring your whole crew along. Sit around the table playing beer pong. She drunk, she bending over and she got a clear thong. I'm looking from the back, man, I got an ass on. Wake up on my back, where the grass come from? This damn green, man, it's got me sitting sideways. This damn lean, man, it's got me sitting sideways. I'm on the scene, and you know I'm sitting sideways. You don't feel like me, that's why you looking at me sideways. This damn green, man, it's got me sitting sideways. This damn lean, man, it's got me sitting sideways. I'm on the scene, man, I'm sitting sideways. You don't feel like me, that's why you looking at me sideways. I'm I'm the king and we gon' do the things my way. I wanna see you in skinny jeans on Friday. When I'm leaning to the left, you better be leaning in the right way. I'm cleaner than a washing machine. If you hyperallergenic, get your antihistamine. You're like a tightwad caught in between a full of latrine and a pistol with a fiend. Gotta get the cream is on top. ACE, we the team that won't stop. They calling me the dean cause I teach them what's hot. Thought you were the new thing, we can see that you're not. We have to get mean cause we're taking your spot. We wanna get a ring, sit in championship box. Call up your queens and tell them get clocked. When they see the muscle is supreme, your boys gon' kick rock. This damn green man got me sitting sideways. This damn lean man got me sitting sideways. I'm on the scene, man. No, I'm sitting sideways. You don't feel like me, that's why you looking at me sideways. This damn green man got me sitting sideways. This damn lean man got me sitting sideways. I'm on the scene, man. No, I'm sitting sideways. You don't feel like me, that's why you looking at me sideways. We thought you were the new thing, but we can see that you're not. Yo, we thought you were the new thing, but we can see that you're not. If you got your own and you clean, drop it like it's hot. If you got your own and you clean, drop it like it's hot. Everybody say wow. How you gon' jock my style? 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 Hey, you guys. How y'all doing? How you feel? Remember, we want you to be an activist. Man, I feel like crap today. I've been neglecting my schoolwork. I haven't done any in like 2 days because I've been feeling like crap. What's up, bro?
What's the deal?
Yeah, man. I barely made it on today. I ain't gonna lie. Freaking, I'm gonna struggle through today. Hopefully we get some more people to join. I got some videos. But yeah, man, I don't know. It's like a little head cold or something. Got me feeling like crap, like maybe a little bit of fever. My daughter was feeling crappy on Saturday and Sunday. She didn't go to school on Monday, and she ate after me, or I ate after her on one of those days. And I think that's what she got me, I think.
Yeah, I don't know where mine came from. Other week, this past weekend, because I went to my mom's, but I started feeling funny before I got there, so I can't say I got it from there. But yeah, I was kind of like congested and stuff like that.
Yeah, I had a little bit of nose running, a little bit of sneezing. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm trying to share to my peoples.
Well, I could talk about what I'm talking about. I put 45 election integrity and fear politics is the name of the show today. 45, is Trump.
Well, yeah, I mean
yeah. So people, maybe people don't know what I'm talking about, but I didn't want to put his name in the title because it's kind of like, it's the freaking clickbait shit. It's like people use Trump's name to get fucking. That's one of the things that happened in the media. They really, really capitalized on Trump and made a whole bunch of money off of him by, making up a whole bunch of stories with his name in it. It's just like sensationalism. People just love it. So I don't want to do that. I don't want to go that route for my show. But he's coming back. His name is coming up more and more in the news, more and more on my feed. And I think it's important that we talk about it related to election integrity and fear politics. And kind of the way everything is going is really scary, man.
I probably can make some predictions just off of my political knowledge, but it's scary the direction that we're going in, and this next political cycle is going to be something else. It's going to be something else, and then when the next presidential election comes around, 2024, that's going to be something else. This is all going to be like new stuff, kind of like, because the way they're doing things is a bit different, like and who knows what the hell is gonna happen, bro. They're restricting, like, they're coming down in the voting laws. Oh, I want to talk about how, the election officials, because Trump was putting certain names out there, and he loved to drop names in his damn speeches, and his little minions will go out there and fucking harass these people that he dropped their names. And you got election officials, like, these aren't politicians. These are people who work in the field. You know what I'm saying? The people who organize elections, basically. And so, like I say, Trump be dropping these people's names, and these people were getting death threats. The people were looking up these people's kids' name, their families, where they go to school, and all kind of shit. So what happened is, a lot of those people are quitting because they just don't want to deal, because it's continuing. Like I say, Trump is coming back.
Well,
a lot of go ahead.
Well, I wanted to ask, did you hear about the new political party?
The one fucking, what's his name? The Asian dude.
Yang. Yeah.
Yang. Yeah. Yeah,
What
I heard
you think?
about it.
What you think?
We do need a third party. So who knows? I can't knock nothing. I like some of his policies. I like some of the stuff he be coming at things. I don't like his politics, but I do like some of his policies. So
Yeah.
I mean, more power to him. I mean, who knows what it's gonna turn into, or if it don't turn into nothing. I really just think that he's using this to keep his name out there. Like, he's smart in a lot of ways. He's politically astute, if you will. And I don't know what his ambitions are. I would say that he ran for president already. That's how he came on the scene. So him having some kind of and then they put him as an anchor on, what was it, CNN? I think it was CNN. I don't know, one of those major news channels. After he failed as president, they put him on one of those fucking news shows and gave him a fat ass check to sit on there and be a political pundit. So I think that his future is going to be in politics. What will it be? I don't know. I think that he wants to be like a somebody in politics, and he's just positioning himself to do that. I don't think he cares at all about a third party actually being successful.
Well, they're looking at the whole thing with the whole third party that they're coming with is not like it's like an all inclusive. This is more of a Asian bloc, voting bloc type thing, like an Asian party. From
More
what?
power to him.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, shit, we need to be doing the same shit.
Exactly. Like I say, more power to them. And if we could move all these black folks, a lot of them, a majority of them, away from the Republican Party and away from the Democrats, because they're bleeding out of the Democratic Party into the Republican Party, only because they don't have nowhere else to go. But it's always been a lot of black Republicans. But anyways, if we could possibly get them to move away from the Republican Party and the Democratic Party into like a new voting bloc, it would definitely have power. It would be powerful as fuck. Yes, it would.
Especially if most of us gravitated to it and actually, supported it and stuck, behind it.
It wouldn't have to be successful, like, as far as us getting a presidential nominee on the ticket, like, right away. That wouldn't even matter. We would have the power of the voting bloc of those, because the whole time the Republicans and the Democrats, they're going to be hurt. They're going to want us back. So that'll be the power. You know what I'm saying? They'll be trying to draw us back into the power party, and that'll push their policies in certain directions, because under that one group, we can just be like, hey, we want reparations. We want healthcare. You know what I'm saying? We want childcare, whatever the hell it is that we want on policy planks. You get what I'm saying? That alone, from the first year developing this Black Party, however you want to, whatever it will be called, it would have that power just from the first year. So if you can get people to hang on year after year, and the party actually grow, and you get like some people on the tickets, then that will be it. It will take time.
Yeah, we have to worry about the ones who try to, the black people who try to identify as, as white, as those, there's always going to be the ones that just, regardless of how good it is for even themselves, that they want to be under, they want to be under white. They're like, they don't like a lot of a
That's
lot of
that
us.
neoliberal shit too, bro. Like, cause I would say the majority of the world is sold on that shit. And I think the reason why is because of the way we've been taught history, and we think that black people ain't did shit at all. Our history started with slavery, and white people made all the damn civilizations and shit.
No, like they're the new ones on the block. This is the first time they've had power like this. Like, I mean, all in one big period of time. Like the last 200 to 300 years is the only, like, this is the time where they've really risen up and have had some power. And that's it. The rest of it has been us for the most part. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, they had Rome, but that was like a mixture. They had,
I was about to say Rome was not. It was not European. Rome
well,
was
it was it
Rome
was
was worldwide people. It was a
well,
multicultural.
multicultural. Yeah, that's what I said. Because I mean, it is European, but it's because, and that's the one of the things that I've, was like discussing with one of my friends, because like they're saying, they use the whole European thing to describe white people, but I'm like, dude, I mean, they're like, Europe was ran by melanated people before, you know, this last crust, that we've gone through, this part of history that we've, everybody's used to now. They think that it's always been that way, but it's just not true. I mean, there's not been enough study. I mean, the kings, the queens, the noblemen,
I
the
look like
dukes.
shit.
What's that?
I said I look like shit. I'm looking at myself at the fucking screen. I ain't looked
Yeah.
at myself all fucking day.
Well, don't feel too bad. I don't look the greatest either.
Fuck.
Plus, my lighting is really off. I need to find some more lighting. The one I had didn't really. The new light I got wasn't that great, so I'm gonna have to figure out something different. But
You could probably get like a lamp. They have bright ass flashlights too.
yeah, but it's still like it doesn't give a wide enough view. That's what I was looking at on the different. Uh,
Flashlights.
yeah, like it'll point me right in my face, and then of course it's leaving a shadow and all that crap. So it's just,
Because all the
I don't
lights I
know.
could think of are need to be plugged up. So you need something that's battery, right? Pretty much.
No, I got plugins.
Oh yeah. Well, then just get a regular ass lamp. A small lamp, like a desktop lamp. That's what I use right here. That's why I have 2 desktop lamps right here.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna try to get some. Probably when I go to Walmart again, I'll try to go shopping this weekend.
Yeah, I did a little shopping this past weekend, and I come reflecting on it. I think maybe I was starting to feel bad already, and because that's what I do. I do stuff like that to make myself feel better. You know what I mean? If that makes any sense, people out there go shopping when you don't feel good. Because shopping feels for me. Shopping, I like to shop.
Yeah,
So
shit.
yeah.
Hell, I go to Walmart I get bored. I might just, when I'm at home and stuff, I get bored. Shit, this is when Walmart was 24 hours. Should I get up at 11 o'clock, 2 o'clock, whatever it is, and just go walk around Walmart and
Buy
sit?
random ass shit. I hate
But
Walmart, but I fuck with Target though.
yeah, Target is cool too. We've done that a little bit too, but Walmart was usually the lick. That was the closest spot we had at the time. But yeah, man. I don't know. I think a lot of this stuff is really weird, man. I mean, I really think it'll be a bad idea. Like if Trump was to try to run again, like that'll be like, to me, it's like a setup for the DNC to win again. You know what I'm
No,
saying?
no way, no fucking way. I mean, even if they do win, this is gonna be a mess, man. They didn't hold nobody accountable for January 6th, and that's part of what I want to talk about today. You know, Bannon is in trouble. Have you heard that?
I saw something somewhere, but I didn't really get all of the details on it.
Let me play a little bit of that then. They trying to get him for real. This is not no game because see, they've been subpoenaing him for a while, and he hasn't been cooperating. And so they're like, if this nigga don't come in and talk to us, because see, they think he has some information about January 6th or whatever. They think that he was one of the leaders or one of the ones who kind of put it together and shit.
Yeah.
But they think he has evidence or something. They want to ask him some questions and tell him to submit some information, and he's not trying to do that shit. So they are finna come down on his ass. They're not playing with him. He might be the scapegoat, but it'd be good though, because like I say, they didn't want to get Trump because he was the president, and they didn't want to set that precedent. You know what I'm saying? But if anybody's looking at this historically, this thing could really get out of hand. Some people need to be held accountable for that shit. Nobody has been really. Them little low misdemeanor charges and shit they getting on these people. A couple of people might have got charged with felonies, but no, that's not nearly enough.
On January 6th, a mob breached the security perimeter of our Capitol, assaulted and injured
Is it just audio?
police officers.
Oh, you can't see it?
Engaged in hand-to-hand violence over an extended period, and invaded and occupied the United States Capitol building, all in an effort to halt the lawful counting of electoral votes and reverse the results of the 2020 election. The day before this all occurred, on January 5th, Mr. Bannon publicly professed knowledge that, quote, all hell is going to break loose tomorrow, end quote. He forecast that the day would be, quote, extraordinarily different than what most Americans expected. He said to his listeners and his viewers, quote, so many people said, if I was in a revolution, I would be in Washington. Well, he said, this is your time in history. Based on the committee's investigation, it appears that Mr. Bannon had substantial advanced knowledge of the plans for January 6th and likely had an important role in formulating those plans. Mr. Bannon was in the war room at the Willard on January 6th. He also appears to have detailed knowledge regarding the president's efforts to sell millions of Americans the fraud that the election was stolen. In the words of many who participated in the January 6th attack, the violence that day was in direct response to President Trump's repeated claims from election night through January 6th that he had won the election. The American people are entitled to Mr. Bannon's firsthand testimony about all of these relevant facts. But as the chairman noted, Mr. Bannon is refusing to provide it. Preserving our Constitution and the rule of law is a central purpose of this investigation. The plain fact here is that Mr. Bannon has no legal right to ignore the committee's lawful subpoena. So far, Mr. Bannon's excuse is that former President Trump wishes to invoke some form of executive privilege for a subset of the relevant topics. President Trump's direct communications with Mr. Bannon regarding the planning for January 6th. This information should not be subject to any privilege at all. And certainly, there is no basis for absolute or unqualified privilege for presidential communications. More important now, there is no conceivably applicable privilege that could shield Mr. Bannon from testimony on all of the many other topics identified in this committee's subpoena. Because he has categorically refused to appear, we have no choice but to seek consequences for Mr. Bannon's failure to comply. Those consequences are not just important for this investigation. They are important for all congressional investigations. Mr. Bannon's and Mr. Trump's privilege arguments do, however, appear to reveal one thing. They suggest that President Trump was personally involved in the planning and execution of January 6th.
Because see, this
And
could
this
all be
committee will get to
political
the bottom of
because
that.
Trump is going to run again.
Let me add one
But if
further
they could
thought.
make a
One in support
mess,
of my
it
Republican
could
colleagues.
affect his.
We all agree that America is the greatest nation on the face of God's earth. Truth, justice, and our Constitution have made America great. Almost every one of my colleagues knows in your hearts that what happened on January 6th was profoundly wrong. You all know that there is no evidence of widespread election fraud sufficient to have changed the results of the election. You all know that the Dominion voting machines were not corrupted by a foreign power. You know these claims are false. Yet former President Trump repeats them almost daily. And he has now urged Republicans not to vote in 2022 and 2024. This is a prescription for national self-destruction. I ask my colleagues, please consider the fundamental questions of right and wrong here. The American people must know what happened. They must know the truth. All of us who are elected officials must do our duty to prevent the dismantling of the rule of law and to ensure that nothing like that dark day in January ever happens again.
So
Yeah.
by no one voting, like, if all of his minions don't vote, like, what will that prove?
Then it's that I don't know exactly. Like that doesn't work. That really doesn't work. I think that it's that double speak shit. That's hard to understand for a person that's thinking logically. When you're so they it's confusion, right? Confusion. That's what they like. They benefit from that. Because the news is going to change. You know what I mean? This news cycle is going to change. That's the news cycle right now. If that makes any sense, what I'm saying, they're just gonna flip it, and the minions are just gonna do whatever the hell the news cycle is telling them to do. You know what I mean? So, but they kept on bringing up, like, is it about Bannon or is it about Trump? You know what I mean? They kept on like it's about
Well,
Bannon.
it's definitely about Trump. I mean,
Yeah,
Bannon is like a way to get to him, because like Bannon will start, like you just said, Trump had his hands right in the middle of the planning of that. So it's like that's already that's a part of a rat. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, he's not going to go down by himself, obviously. But I guess, to me, I think it's more so like indirectly is going for Trump, because like what sounds like you were saying a minute ago was that it will, you know, make a disturbance for his any kind of
his
campaign he might
campaign.
try to
Yeah,
yeah, he would try to come with. And most Americans, regardless, like even those who may have supported him before, probably won't support him this time. And my thing is, I mean, honestly, I mean, if Biden makes it through this term, then he most likely will run for the next term. And that puts us in a bad position.
It's really ugly for the Democrats right now because people do not like Kamala Harris at all. No one likes her, and it's looking like Biden may not be. A lot of people are saying like you automatically get the Democratic nomination for your second term. When you become president, but
exactly.
This time it might end up being Kamala just because Biden might not be able to really do it,
Yeah, his health. And I mean, honestly, this would be probably, I mean, the only reason why they put him up this time, because I mean, that's who they was pushing for to begin with, was Kamala.
Yeah, that's who they wanted. And a lot of people don't remember that. She was the star boy, or she was the pick. She was Hillary Clinton's pick. Hillary Clinton endorsed her. She was supposed to, the women, the Me Too thing. She was supposed to the glass ceiling. So they don't give up though. They always looking at shit. They're like, okay, well, they don't give a damn, bro. Like, they be having their agendas, like,
And they're way more strategic. It seems. I mean, I don't see where where Republicans are. Are as.
Well, no, I think the Republicans are better. It's just the at being like getting what they want to get done. But the Democratic side have more power. That's what I be saying all the time. They have the money, they have the institutions, bro. Like they on their side, that's where the money is at. That's where the money is at, bro. Trust me on that. That's that neoliberal global domination shit, bro. Them niggas got the money.
Well,
so they can make mistakes, they can fuck up. But like I say, they also get paid to lose because they both sides are working together.
Well, the biggest corporations right now are Democratic corporations. So that's why like the main billionaires, except I mean the newest the number one guy now, I don't know if he really has a side, but I think he kind of leaned toward Republicanism. But we got Zuckerberg, we got Bezos, Gates.
Gates, yep.
We got Buffett, got
yep, go down the list.
Yeah, like all.
So you also have to understand that these people do make donations and campaign donations, and they cover the politics and the candidates that they like. They're going to support them.
Well,
so like I say,
and that's above the counter, and that's above the counter and below the counter money,
in all different kinds of ways. Because because Jeff Bezos got the Washington Post, and that's a huge media outlet. You can use that to push, and they do. To push the candidates that they like and shit like that. So, but what I was gonna say was, even with the Democrats trying to lose, Hillary, and then you got people, the Hillary Clinton type, groups, they still on their shit. And with all of that, Kamala Harris could land her ass in the presidency, even after everybody hating her.
The feminist group, like you just got to think, like there's a lot of institutions out there that's been mostly supporting the Democrats financially because
and regardless of what happens, she's next in line regardless. Like there's no scenario where she's not next in line.
I know. I mean, it's really the perfect setup. And then don't be a feminist or an AKA or something they blindly will blindly go like she
they don't care. It's the identity politics, the representation. That's all they want. They don't care what policies she have. She looks like me. I want her to be president, period.
Yeah. And I mean, and then not even like the staunch feminists, but even just like, because there were like girls I went to school with, they weren't really, the feminist type or even like a sorority girl or any of that, but black girl magic. I mean, that brings out a lot of emotions. You know what I'm saying? So, like, I mean, it'll be hard for her not, because I mean, really, like, people forget so quickly about these politicians. You know what I'm saying? Like the very things that happened in the last election, or even things that led up to it. Like, people forget that stuff, and if we're not careful, yeah, people will be like, well, it's better than having Trump. It's better than it. I mean, I can't, because then that's, to me, that's like a tough call to make. Is it really? Because I mean, as bad of an idea as having Trump as a president for the first time, and even for the second time, and it be a hard decision for somebody to, like myself, to make, to say, damn, is she better? Like, I don't know. I mean, it makes my head spin.
It's craziness, man.
And I hope the Republicans are smart enough to come up with somebody who's better off as a candidate.
There
Because I
ain't
mean,
nobody. There ain't nobody. Trump is dominating the party. There ain't nobody. Who is gonna beat Trump on the Republican side?
now, I mean, I'm gonna tell you, who will probably run again.
DeSantis. What's his name? They're setting up. What's his name? The Florida governor. He's trying to head that way.
Nah,
You,
he might. Now, since he hadn't he didn't run in the primaries, did he?
I no. And I
Unless,
think I think this time he will. I don't remember. I don't remember DeSantis being
well,
on the bill last time. He could have been. It was a bunch of them.
I
It's
mean,
like 22.
DeSantis might be one. Um, Abbott could be
Abbott,
one. Uh, what's the senator that you hate?
Cruz.
Cruz. He probably will run again, and possibly Rubio. But Rubio, I think
He's
he's
kind
the
of yeah. He's
he's
kind of
he's
he
he's
was
like
the
he's a liberal.
he's
Like
kind of
he's
gone the other way. I don't think they wanted him to be the guy, but now they're like, I think his shine has passed and he's not going to be on the list this time. Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
if even if he is, he's going to be a low. Last time he was high. This time he will be low if he's on
But
there.
no, but what was the guy from Ohio that was running and people kind of liked him, but of course, Trump shined everybody. But it was a guy. I think he was the governor for Ohio.
Can't think of it.
Yeah, I can't think of his name, but for whatever, he was kind of a balanced out type of guy. Like he
But there's
wasn't.
nobody, bro. There's nobody. Come on, man. And all of those names. DeSantis is about the only one. And as long as Trump is on the scene, I think if I was DeSantis, I would wait. I would wait till Trump goes away because he's gonna have to go away at some point. So, because this next presidential cycle is probably his last chance or whatever. His name is gonna go down, So I would wait if I was DeSantis, but
Well, I don't know. Now there might be a lot of stuff in play that we don't, because I mean I've kind of thought about the whole idea of, because I mean just for the fact that he does have a grasp on a good amount of Republicans, that he stays in it. But if Trump may try to come back, but at the same time, all it would take is a good endorsement from Trump for whoever the candidate that.
even later, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, so he's gonna have power for a while, but maybe not in the way that he could actually run for president. That's what I mean. I mean, he's gonna be able to run this time, but then after that, it's a wrap. It's a wrap.
Yeah, but I'm hoping that he doesn't run at all, because I mean, really, that's a bad political move, period. And that's like they've been like the Republicans been doing so bad for the last few years of cycles that you know, and it's based on, like, it's kind of like the same thing that the Democrats were doing. They've gone through some bad idea, like the whole idea to push Hillary was like that was like the worst thing they could do. Like I mean, if we wouldn't have had Trump in office, and things could have been, like could have had more of a, that democratic socialist ideas.
I don't know about the socialism for Hillary Clinton, but
No, 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 no,
that
no, 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 no,
definitely
no.
that
No,
neoliberal
I'm saying
shit.
if they hadn't put her as the top candidate, if Bernie
Oh
had
yeah,
been the top candidate, it would have been more leaning that way.
yeah,
You
right.
know what I'm saying? And they would have a better grasp of the people. Now they may have had some, angry Republicans, but at the same time, politically, like I mean,
Yeah,
this
they
this
shot
is as
themselves in the foot. They shot themselves in the foot with Hillary Clinton, and that's part of the reason why I would say that's the main reason why Trump won.
exactly. Like I mean, by her being in office, like all the stuff that happened with Benghazi, the emails, all these things that were like, she gotten
They
pardoned
tried to
and all that kind.
force they tried to force her down the Democrats' throat,
Yes.
and the Democrats, a lot of us wasn't feeling that shit, and we just like, nah.
Well, they trying to force because at that point it was like it had to be a female. Like they were pushing it has to be a
That would have
female.
been fine, just not Hillary Clinton,
It,
somebody
it, it,
fucking else.
exactly. And see, that's the thing. If it had to be a female at the time, not so much. But I mean, I'm sure a lot of stuff would have come out about Kamala, but at the same time, they probably would have had a better chance at that time
They
to
would have
come out.
because we didn't know who Kamala was. We know who she is now. So yeah, hell yeah, if they would have put her up that cycle, but see, Bernie would have smashed her.
Her too. Well, yeah, Bernie really smashed Hillary,
Yeah,
but because of all of the, I mean, because of politics is what really kept him from getting the job.
and the way they do this shit. Now we talking about police integrity and shit. So let's watch a little bit of this right here. I mean, not police integrity, election integrity, because that's what they was talking about, and that's pretty much what happened with. That's why people need to pay attention, bro. Because what they Sanders was actually literally screwed, like for real. Like it wasn't like how they saying Trump was screwed. No, he wasn't screwed. He lost. Bernie Sanders was actually screwed.
Yeah, he was like he totally got screwed.
Hey, Rick, 234 years ago, the founding Caucasian fathers of America gave us the Second Amendment. Time's running out, Richard. We're coming after you and every motherfucker that stole this election with our Second Amendment. Subpoenas be damned. You're going to be served lead, you fucking enemy communist. You will be served lead.
We'll make the Boston bombings look like child's play at the poll sites in this county. You just effing wait. No one at these places will be spared.
The first email that my wife received, your husband should tell the truth, or your 3 kids will be fatally shot. Cops can't help you. Hugh. Then provides a link to an image of our home.
Well, we started receiving lots of disturbing phone calls. My staff is almost exclusively African American, and they started receiving calls laced with racial slurs. Starting on Christmas Day through New Year's Day, I received in my voicemail probably, it was at least 100 voicemails up to 150.
You ought to blow your fucking brains out, you piece of shit.
If you have a hand in this, you deserve to go to prison. You actually deserve to hang by your goddamn soy boy skinny ass neck.
Either you're blind or you're crooked as fuck. So figure it out, buddy, because which side you going to be on when the fucking shoot starts, brother?
They started to do surveillance on my staff, taking pictures of all of the individuals that would come in and go in and out of the warehouse. They would take pictures of their license plates. I think at that point, especially for my staff and I, we were feeling as though we were under siege.
So this email is what we had received on January the 2nd. It states, this election is effing rigged. Detonations will occur at every polling site set up in this county. No one at these places will be spared. My first thought was, this cannot be happening here. This does not happen in Paulding County. The first calls I made were to the higher ups. I was told that we had to take this as a serious threat. And when you start seeing the plan that the law enforcement has drawn out, where we, have to park our cars up against the building because, our office is on the ground floor. There's glass windows that we're all sitting in front of. And the statement that pierced me was when he said, if a vehicle were to pull up, at least this would soften the blow. And when he said that, that was when I thought, this is real. This is real. How dare someone pick this county to try to basically scare the voters out of going and casting their vote.
There was a concerted effort to discredit the results from Philadelphia before a single vote was cast or counted.
I'm urging my supporters to go into the polls and watch very carefully, because that's what has to happen. Bad things happen in Philadelphia.
Joining me now is Philadelphia City Commissioner Al Schmidt, a Republican, we might add.
After an interview on CNN, my communications director came up to me and said, the president just tweeted about you. Not long after the former president tweeted at me, I received the first specific threat. You lied. You're a traitor. Perhaps cuts and bullets will soon arrive. Gave my address. Mentions my wife by name. Mentions my kids by name, including my daughter by her nickname. Rhino stole election. We steal lives. Q. I spoke to my wife a little bit after that. She had begun receiving threats on her work email. So she then took our kids and relocated away from our house. After that, some days later, there was another email message. The subject line are the names of my children. And I'm not comfortable reading the rest of it. We now had 24-hour police protection undercover outside of our home or wherever my family was, wherever they went. The real danger to this environment right now, and threats and all the rest, is you have good people who are very experienced, who have been running elections for a long time, quitting and retiring.
So I'm really proud of the fact that, in a non-arrogant manner, but that I am the highest vote getter, or was the highest vote getter in Scott County in the history. I like to say Iowa nice. We're not Maricopa County. We're not Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We're not a large populated community. The unfortunate thing is that I believe Iowa was the first state that imposed a whole litany of new election laws, which was followed by numerous other states.
A bill that would significantly change Iowa's election laws is heading to Governor Reynolds' desk. The state Senate passed Senate File 413 on Tuesday.
I think the importance of understanding what this bill is about is the criminalization of election officials. Under Senate File 413 in Iowa, the criminalization of not only election chairs, such as myself, a commissioner of election, but poll workers or election workers, that's criminal. That could be a misdemeanor or a felony. This is simply just saying that, if you do something unwillfully, that you could still be fined. $10,000 is a lot of money to a lot of us. And we're seeing this across the country as they've moved from Iowa to other states as well, where we're seeing election officials actually exit, and you're taking institutional knowledge away. After a difficult year in 2020 with both the primary and general election, I have decided it's time for me to retire. The extensive election changes just enacted by the Iowa legislators will only make these limitations even worse. I cannot thank the citizens of Scott County enough for their many years of support through my journey in life as Davenport City Council member, a Scott County supervisor, and then the last 14 years as Scott County Auditor and Commissioner of Elections. Sorry. I'm capable of taking quite a bit, but 2020 was a little too much for me at my office, and the criminalization of what might be a mistake just really cemented it for me.
We have had a...
So what you think, man? Like, I think the main part of this, what people need to hear in this, is how disruptive this is to the election process. You know what I mean? Is this helping? You know what I mean? Is it making their integrity voting process better?
I'm hoping overall it will. Now, I mean, I know that's a crazy answer based on everything we just heard, but I mean, I hope nobody falls for these fear tactics, and of course, the involvement needs to happen regardless. Like, if you truly believe in America and the way it should be, run. I mean, us getting afraid and fearful of, some bullshit somebody's, saying, then, I mean, if you're a true patriot, you're not going to allow any of that bullcrap get in the way of you trying to find justice for Americans.
Yeah. Freaking and the other thing I want to focus on is that the conversation is I don't want to play that. The conversation is wrong, right? If they're really concerned about election integrity, then we should be making our election integrity better. You know what I mean? The voting process better. Like I say, like a voting app, something. These old ass machines that we use, the old ass process that we use to vote needs to be upgraded, and we need to make it more secure. If you're really worried about the security of the way people vote, but instead of talking about that, we are talking about freaking, everything but that. You know what I mean? It's so frustrating to me.
I mean, I know I'm certain you have ID and no problem with going to vote, but what do you think about this whole thing where the Republicans are, fighting to keep it, like, as far as people who can vote to be able to vote, but they have to show ID because they're trying to avoid the whole, illegal immigrants or anybody else, coming in with other people's identity to make the vote. Like, it's a lot of different scenarios that, I guess they're assuming that what could happen, but is the ID thing really a big deal?
That's just part of it. But it goes back to poll tax. Back in the day, they used to have poll tax. They used to have education, like tests that they would make you pass. And all of it was to attack certain segments of the population to make it more difficult for them to vote. And I wouldn't say the ID is a big thing, but it's just that's just a way to keep certain people from voting.
Well, you know what? Honestly, me personally, I think it's a bunch of bull crap that, because that's one of those things that the Democrats try to say, but that's to assume that black people don't have IDs.
No. That's totally, like, it's total. You're right about what you're saying, but the result is to get fewer people to vote. That they don't give a damn about what you think about what it is. You know what I'm saying? They just want fewer people to vote so that they can have more power over the damn voting, period. I mean, like, who gets elected and who doesn't. It's really simple.
Well, I think that's supposed to be one of the things that keeps the integrity right about it, because I mean, all of a sudden, I mean, for whatever reason, the Democrats don't care who vote, but it's like shit that they would give a damn if it is illegals or just
No,
double voting.
man. If you look, see, that's the reason why history and like shit is so important, because if you look at the actual numbers, the amount of people that double vote or anything like that is so low, and most of the time they get caught. and it's a felony charge for doing that shit. You go to jail for that shit, and it's really difficult. And then a person voting 2 times is not going to have a sway on an election either way anyway. And it doesn't happen very much historically.
Well, and I mean, and I get that, but okay, I really would like to know the numbers of Americans who don't have, like, I mean, you go to the bank, you got to show ID. You go,
and I'm on your side with this. I be telling niggas all the time, get a damn bank account. But look, it's a huge segment of people, and these are not just black people. They still go pay their bills at Sack and Save or Fiesta or whatever. You know what I mean? They just they kind of stuck in the past. They haven't, and then poverty, having income issues is another reason why your ID won't be current. You have to think about that. You can't get your new ID because you owe them some money that you can't pay. You know what I'm saying? You have tickets on your car, shit like that. That's, like I say, it's really just a reason. It's really a way to keep a certain segment of people from voting. That's all it really is. But if you really believe in democracy, then you want everybody that's a citizen to be. It's their right to vote.
Exactly. But that's what I'm saying. Like, I really would like to know the numbers of people who don't have IDs.
It's. I mean, I don't know that it probably, the number is probably not that significant overall. But like I say, the ID thing is just a part of it. That's just one little segment. They have other little parts that do the same little job that one does, and them building upon each other. Now you got a significant segment of people who end up not being able to vote for whatever reason. Polling locations, all of this shit.
Now that's the part that I have an issue with, as far as like where certain people are able to go vote.
It's the hours. But right now, early voting is going right now here.
And even Tuesdays is like ridiculous to me. Like, why are we holding elections on a Tuesday when most people are at work?
I always vote early vote. I'm probably gonna go tomorrow. I've been procrastinating because I don't know when it ends. And I think it's ending soon. So early voting is the way to go, because you can go at any time of the day, and you can also go to any location. Well, that's the way it works here. But when if you wait to the voting day, then you have to go to specific locations related to your precinct and all that bullshit. Because you'll show up and they'll be like, oh yeah, you can't come here. You have to go here, such and such and such. Why it's like that, I don't know. Because in early voting, you can just go to any location, and I don't know. Again, that's just another way to keep people from being on it. But I tell people, vote early. Go to early voting. It's a lot easier. You don't have the crowds. You don't have the lines.
And I think we may have discussed this, but there should be a way, like, because they got facial recognition everywhere. If you can do it from a laptop, or even where they take a snapshot of you while you're on the thing voting.
And then the voting machine should have that already, right? I mean, that's why I say we have this old ass fucking archaic ass system that we use to vote. The machines can be hacked by a high school student with their cell phone. And we're not worried about that. We're worried about some more other shit, like double voting. Double voting should not be what we worried about. If the integrity gets fucked up, it's going to be people losing ballots, flipping ballots, changing the machines, shit like that. It's not going to be some guy in Iowa voting 2 times and then going to another state and voting. That is so ridiculous to even like, you know, if they doing it, let them do it. Fuck it. You know what I'm saying? It's not even going to have no impact.
But that mail-in voting, I see it as a problem. I really do see that as a problem.
They have a track. They can track all of that shit. And like one thing about the mail-in voting is like who was filling it out. You know what I mean? So maybe they didn't even.
That's the thing. Like dead people are voting.
No. They have records of all this shit. If they're gonna discover that shit, that's what the people who was scared in the video that I just played. That's their job. They have staff for that shit. You're not gonna get away with that. You're not gonna get away with that. It's not gonna work. You cannot vote. You cannot unless they just died, and then it's still gonna come out eventually. It's still gonna come out. Because there's a story where that happened. It was a guy, his wife passed away. And he voted for her. And you know, it was a valid vote because his wife had just passed away. But they discovered that shit and they took this nigga to jail. Felony charge. No.
But I mean,
you can't do it and get away with it. You can't. It's everything is tracked.
Well, I don't know. I don't necessarily believe that because I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's getting by us as a people. Yeah, you hear about 1 or 2 people getting arrested, but there's thousands of people that is dying every year, and then for whatever reason, that if they're sending everybody, you know, like all these different organizations do not share information, so everybody's not gonna know that this person that you see a vote for actually died 2 days, 3 days, a year. This whole year, that like, that's
ain't no way it could be a year. You have to file a death certificate when someone dies.
But that's the part I'm talking about. They're not sharing that information with all the sources. Like it's not like one central
and
place.
That's one of the things that do definitely need to be improved. That's one of the things that definitely need, because just even within law agencies within your neighborhood, they don't fucking share very much information and knowledge. Like it's the American way to be selfish with fucking and not communicating and not sharing information. It's so fucking stupid. But yeah, it should be all on one fucking database or some shit, like a national database where even the citizens can log in and look at that shit. Yes, it absolutely agree with you on that. But historically, this thing is not a thing that can have any impact on elections, even if they are doing this. It's not a thing.
I'm not sure. I mean, you know, I wish I could feel as confident as you
because I'm so into this shit. I've seen so many. I'm 100% confident in this. There's evidence. You can look this up. Maybe I'll make a video of it, and I would have to do the research. But check this out. This video is really good, and I couldn't find many stop. So we'll just watch this, and I'll stop it, and we'll talk about it as it goes. It's only 12 minutes, but it's so much good stuff in it that I pretty much want to play most of it.
Okay.
So check it out.
Greatest country on earth, the strongest, the richest, the most powerful country on earth. As an American, I'm sure you've heard that roughly 135 times a year. 235 if you go to public school. 335 if you go to a Christian academy. We're told that Americans have the best lives of any people in the world. That we have low taxes, small government, and the highest living standards on earth. And most inaccurately, that we're the freest. Well, it is partly true. America is the richest country, not just in the world, but in the history of the world. It's really hard to comprehend just how rich we are. We have 18 million people who are millionaires. American households own about $100 trillion in wealth, an almost unthinkable amount of money. Okay, so America is the richest country ever. But there's a curious paradox. Most Americans actually have a much worse standard of living than people who live in poorer countries like Germany or Finland or Britain. But how can that be? That shouldn't make any sense. Well, here's the shitty deal. Americans get significantly worse services because our tax dollars don't fund them. So, of course, our services are worse, and thus we enjoy less happy lives than people who live in the aforementioned countries. Not that difficult a concept to conceive, really. You get what you pay for, said the cartoon dog to the other cartoon dog. And while you might think the reason American tax dollars don't fund as many services is because we pay lower taxes than other countries, that's not even true. When you add federal, state, local, and sales taxes and include other costs and services that our taxes don't cover but other countries' taxes do, like our uniquely high health insurance premiums, you'll find that Americans actually give away more of their wages than most of the developed world. For example, in Canada, for a married worker with 2 kids, all of the previously mentioned costs combined, from taxes to health insurance premiums, make up only 11% of the average wage. In the UK, it's just about 26%. Meanwhile, once you tack on the cost of our outlandish health insurance premiums, you're spending a whopping 43% of your paycheck. That's more than France, Finland, Sweden, and Norway. In real reality, Americans keep much less of what we own than in other countries. In other countries, their government takes a bit more tax, but then gives that money back to their citizens in the form of healthcare or job support, or a general safety net for all vulnerable citizens, no matter how dusky they are.
What you think so far? Comments?
Well, seems to be very, very true from what I can see. I mean, you know, those countries they mentioned, Germany and Finland and all them, like, these people are generally happy. You know, and that's mainly because of the way the support they actually get from, you know, their government, which is really like merely it's just the fact that the you know, people who are paying taxes are actually able to benefit in other ways. It's like they can see where their money is going. You know what I'm saying? Because they're you know, they're able to see it through the healthcare, through different benefits that they get for, you know, like the whole, you know, well, I guess that's a part of healthcare, but you know, the pensions, the like a lot of different things that people need, and you know, in order to really be able to sustain a decent way of life, they're getting it in some of these small countries that doesn't have nearly as much as America does, but because of the greed here, you know, because of, you know, spineless people really just trying to hoard and really block a bunch of people off from those tax dollars that were, you know, is their money to begin with. You know, the people who pay the most taxes have to fight to get more out of the tax dollars. It doesn't make sense.
It's because of the greed. They want more money. And then I be talking about, I was thinking about something, and it had to do with the jobs, because you know, we have a lot of jobs that are cush as like administration, and a lot of the money, a lot of the taxes goes to that, and it's those people's salaries, literally. So a lot of those jobs need to be eliminated. They're all cushy ass fucking jobs anyways.
Yeah, we you know, supposedly, you know, the top of the free world, but I mean, I think that's just a big hoax. That's just a big lie to make people, you know, feel it, and you know, when they hear it, it sounds great, but there's really no proof of it, you know, in reality. Like,
but we hear it so much.
You hear so much,
So
you're
what
programmed to believe it.
Check it out.
do Americans get for the money we pay in? Well, sure, we get a crumbling infrastructure, shameful homelessness, and millions of hungry, neglected children, but we also get some of the worst services in the developed world. Again, our healthcare. American healthcare is simultaneously the most expensive, the least efficient, and the least effective healthcare system in the developed world. Hey, the devil's trifecta. And in exchange for this extremely expensive, inefficient healthcare system, what do we get? Well, we get some of the worst health outcomes in the developed world. We have fewer hospital beds per capita than people in Turkey or Brunei. Americans have a lower life expectancy than people in Lebanon or Cuba. And in the Mississippi Delta and much of Appalachia, life expectancy is lower than in Bangladesh. In fact, in 2017, the United Nations sent a commissioner to West Virginia to document what he saw, and he described, quote, third world conditions of absolute poverty, unquote. We even have a higher infant mortality rate than people in Russia and Serbia. In every single metric, America does worse across the board. So why is healthcare so expensive? Because it's so complicated. You have to look for in-network physicians, schedule an established care appointment, beg for coverage from your insurance company that couldn't care less about you, and that's if you're lucky enough to have good insurance. Compare that to Britain and all of those other evil, socialist-like countries where it's simple. Public hospitals provide free treatment to people who need it. That's it. I'll repeat that. Public hospitals provide free treatment to people who need it. And here's the best part. Even though Britain offers healthcare for free, their system is actually a lot cheaper to run than ours. Per capita healthcare spending in the US is almost 3 times what it is in Britain, and almost 5 times what Canadians spend. In fact, Americans spend the most per person of any country in the world for healthcare. But the free market is more efficient, you screech. But in America, private systems often aren't efficient at all. Private drug companies have an incentive to charge whatever they can get away with for pharmaceuticals. In Canada, a carton of insulin costs about $20. In the US, it costs $300. And with private insurance companies footing the bill, hospitals have an incentive to get as much money out of patients as possible too. In 2015, the average cost of an MRI scan in the US was $1,119, but it was only $215 in Australia. Spain, about $181. And our healthcare system is so inefficient that we spend over 1/3 of our cost on administration. The United States spends significantly more on administration than we spend on preventative or long-term healthcare. That's just not smart. Okay, we get it. We all know that American healthcare is so much more expensive, you say, but that's the cost of having the freest freedom in God's favorite country. Well, guess what? Medical procedures that are totally free in Britain, like giving birth, cost tens of thousands of dollars in the United States. I mean, you want to talk about the cost of freedom. Sadly, because of these high costs, Americans often avoid going to the doctor, something almost half the population say they do. With shoddy or non-existent health insurance, Americans will wait until their conditions force them into the emergency room where treatment is far more expensive. Again, not a smart system. Quite often, they end up putting off medical visits and dying. Susan Finley, a 53-year-old Walmart employee in Colorado, got pneumonia and took 1 day off of work beyond what Walmart's policy allows. So, of course, Walmart's going to Walmart, which they did by firing her. Without her job, she lost her nominal health care coverage, she struggled to find new work, and after avoiding a visit to the doctor for flu-like symptoms, she was found dead in her apartment. When Americans do manage to get treated, they frequently can't afford it. Simple, life-saving treatments can cost tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars, and if they don't have really good insurance, they're forced to take on medical debt. Tens of millions of Americans owe medical debt, often into the tens of thousands of dollars. Meanwhile, in a country like Britain or Norway, medical debt is almost unheard of. But hey, that's why GoFundMe is such a critical component of American healthcare. 1 in 3 GoFundMe campaigns is now for medical bills. I'll repeat that. 1 in 3 GoFundMe campaigns is now for medical bills. America.
You there? Don't want to put all y'all to sleep. I'm putting all y'all to sleep, huh? This is a good video. At the end, he talked about 1 in 3 Americans fucking GoFundMe is our fucking healthcare system. And then you know what's crazy about that? GoFundMe is socialism. I don't think people realize that our system sucks so bad. Our capitalist system, the way we do healthcare, sucks so bad that we got to rely on a socialist system to supplement it. Yeah, Pat went to sleep. Pat, putting y'all to sleep, bro. Trying to give y'all some really good information. It's so difficult. I didn't feel well today, so that's the reason why I was going to rely on these videos so much. But I could have talked about this same stuff. But it was really concise in this video, and plus, like I said, I don't feel good, so I felt like I was going to let the videos do the talking for me today. Yeah, I haven't ate nothing. This shit kind of spicy, so it's clearing me up. It's probably good. Just gave my lungs some opening up. Pat, you there? Did you hear that about the GoFundMe being? What I was saying was our system, our healthcare system, ran by capitalism, sucks so bad that it's like 1 in 3 GoFundMes are for medical bills. And the thing about that is GoFundMe, it would be socialism if you really looked at it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's people sharing money so that they can cover the other people's medical bills because they can't cover them because the system is so trash.
Yeah.
So that's what I think is interesting about that. I think that it's super interesting that in America we have this double-ass standard about socialism and capitalism. How and the pull yourself up by your bootstraps bullshit, but we got GoFundMe is like the number one way to cover your medical bills.
Yeah. And you said it's 1/3 of all GoFundMes?
Yeah, that's what he said in this.
That's very interesting.
So, but that shows how this is, again, the double standard between capitalism and socialism. And also it reveals how shitty our system is, how much it doesn't work.
Yeah, but I mean, it does work for few, and for the majority, no, it doesn't. And that's, the system is working the way it was meant to work.
I would agree with that. But the people that pretend, they're like I was saying in the elevator, like people always be talking about, oh, it works. But I'm like, if you got to wiggle it and shake it and press the button hard 2-3 times, that means it don't work. That means it. And in the video,
needs to be recalibrated.
I don't know if it was in this one, but he was talking about like how the infrastructure bill, how like not keeping up on the infrastructure is the reason why you have to spend all this money. And I was reading under the comments of a story I was reading, and people are like, stop spending the money. We don't have the money. And they keep on saying that shit. And it's like, the reason why the infrastructure is trash is because of the capitalist system not wanting to spend the money and doing the regular ass fucking maintenance. This bill wouldn't be so big if they would have just took care of it. And it's costing us money literally because they were talking about the wear and tear. They said everybody spends $300 on their car a year off of potholes and shit like that. Bad infrastructure.
Yeah. But I think there's a lot to do with our government and trying to find ways, like they take the tax dollars and find ways to split it between, other politicians and the things that they could actually be spending it on. You know, like, because I mean, honestly, I feel like a lot of the stuff that they're trying to do with that infrastructure bill, could be beneficial to a certain extent. But I mean, I mean, I say to a certain extent, I mean, it would be beneficial, but a lot of times, you know, is the question has to come up is like this the best thing to do right now, or especially based on being in so much debt. And I know I know how you think of it as far as there's no such thing as debt, but
No,
legally,
that is
law.
real. It's the way that they talk about it in politics is not.
Well, no, and I get that because I mean most people don't know about the what is it, the World Monetary Fund,
Uh-huh.
like there's actually a surplus of money that's really, because I mean technically the government, the America is still owned by the Moors, the people who like that fund was made up for, but because of the way it's being run as a corporation or through a corporation, the debt isn't really America's debt, it's the United States debt. You know what I'm saying? So it's still a lot of stuff that's mixed up into that. And even the Republicans knowing that difference, like they can't really tap into the real money of America because they're not, they don't.
But even talking about the debt, at some point you got to spend the money on the infrastructure, right? The argument that we shouldn't do it now, they can say that forever, and that's the same thing that they have been saying. It's kicking the can down the road, and that's exactly why the bill keeps going up.
All right, but look at this right now. Like, how long does our the roads under what we're the spending that we've had for 10 years ago that went to infrastructure, the roads, the bridges and things like that, but the stuff is still not getting done because they're allowing you know contractors to come in and lollygag and bullshit and let them do it on their own schedule instead of saying, okay, well, look, can you have it done in a year? Can you have it done by this time? And if you're not, then you have to pay us. I mean, like something needs to, like, there's a lot of bullshit that goes on that could change a lot of this stuff because if there were incentives for them or penalties for them to have to deal with for taking too long on any project that the government is paying, like a lot of this shit will change.
I
But
think a lot of it has to do with the politics of it. People
no,
arguing about how much shit it's going to cost and spending too much money and all of this shit. And also, like, why don't we have trains? Why we don't have high speed rail?
well, no, all that stuff I think would be great and would if we could look at the change happening within the next 4 to 5 years, like where all these things are done, then yeah. But if this is something we're still looking at, like that we can maybe benefit from in the next 20 years,
Well,
like
they talk about 10 years, but again, that goes with funding. Think about what you're saying. How much would it cost to get all this shit up and running in 3 years? More than this fucking trillions of dollars that they're talking about. And the infrastructure bill isn't even $1 trillion. It's in the billions. The reconciliation bill is the one that's in the trillions. And another thing about that bill, they was trying to come in at 9,000. Then they went down to 6,000. Well, 9 trillion. Then they went down to 6 trillion. The bill that's going through Congress right now is 3.5 trillion, and it still hasn't passed because they say it's too high, and they're cutting the. I think they're cutting the good shit out of it. They're about to cut all the good shit out of it, and it's because of people like you arguing about the fucking bill being too high.
no, it's no, it's not. See, you missed what I said because my thing. All right, if we're gonna spend that kind of money, why does it have to be a 10 or 20-year project? Like, this should be a 2 to 3 year project. You know, the rail system might take a little longer because of, you know, whatever, you know, but at the same time, there's a lot of stuff like they're still working on the roads from money that we put up fucking 20 years ago. 5, 10 years ago, how whatever it is.
It's because of the shitty deals that we get. That's what the dude is talking about in this video.
And that was my argument, is that when they're making these deals with these contractors, like, why aren't they, they're smart enough to do all this other shit, but they're not smart enough to say, hey, well, we need this shit done by such and such time.
That's
If you don't,
corruption. And that's where the people need to step in and be like, hey, we need accountability. We need transparency. We need to know what the hell y'all doing with this fucking money. But instead, they got us arguing about mask mandates and shit.
exactly. And that's the part right there. Like, I mean, and that's not a
Coincidence.
well, no, it's no coincidence. But honestly, I think because it's hard to even say, really, because it could be both Republican and Democrats that's allowing shit like that to happen. But it seems to me, at least right now, it would have been in the hands of Democrats. I don't see them trying to make it any different. And like, they don't care if they make you wait 50 more years to really see the benefits of what we're paying taxes for now.
Yeah, but like I say all the time, those arguments are the same arguments that they make, and that's the reason why nothing is getting done.
Well, that's something that definitely needs to be changed. Like, I don't know. Because, like I said, I'm driving all over the country now, and it's like you can't really get nowhere fast because there's fucking cones and barrels and shit every freaking where, and it's
no work getting done.
Yeah, they got the the freeway broke up in different sections, and it's been like that for fucking, like, who knows how long. Some shit ends up getting done, and I think
we got to change that whole system. If we build some trains, then it'll be less people on the fucking freeway.
I mean, that would, I don't know how much, because I honestly, that would benefit us more as far as truck drivers, because it frees up the roads from four-wheelers who can't drive. Like, we wouldn't have there wouldn't be as many accidents if, there were less four-wheelers on the road.
Yep. And it's going to be less four-wheelers on the road if you have a better transit system, because most of these people are on their way to work or on their way home from work. Y'all traveling from state to state. It's totally different.
Yeah.
And we could have a system where these people could get back and forth to work, way more efficiently.
Yeah.
So I don't want to put you to sleep, but this video is really good, man. Check it out. I'm gonna play a little more.
Because such a strong, powerful, rich, and great country that its citizens have to beg strangers on the internet for money so they can get life-saving treatments that are free in the rest of the developed world. But hey, that's just healthcare. Americans get terrible deals wherever you look. Let's take work, for example. Americans work longer hours than people in any other rich country in the world, and that's not because they enjoy sleep deprivation and not seeing their families for days at a time. It's because they don't want to starve or freeze or die. See, America has the least generous job support programs, the least generous family benefits, and the least generous unemployment benefits of any wealthy country. It's one of the only countries on earth that doesn't guarantee paid time off for vacations. It doesn't even help provide paid time off for parents who just had a child. And it's not coincidental that we're also one of the most hostile countries to workers' rights. America has one of the lowest unionization rates in the entire world. Maybe this deprivation, our refusal to give people the means to lead a good, dignified life commensurate with how rich our country is, can explain a bit of what we've seen in the United States over the last few decades. Fraying communities, rising rates of depression and suicide, huge numbers of deaths from drug overdoses. These so-called deaths of despair, suicide, drug overdoses, alcoholic liver disease, they're one big reason why American life expectancy has actually started to decline over the last few years.
Mm-hmm.
And with such poor conditions, it's not a surprise that poverty is so rampant in the United States. America devotes a smaller percentage of spending on social welfare than any other industrialized economy because, say it with me, socialism is evil. It's evil. Go to Denmark and try telling those happy, healthy families enjoying their paid vacation that their system of government is evil. Guess what? I guarantee they'll know you're an American. But I digress.
It's uniquely American.
America also has the highest rate of child poverty of any developed country, and the highest percentage of workers earning significantly less than the national median income. That seems pretty evil to me, especially since such a tiny fraction take as much of your money for themselves and their families as you will let them. All the while, both parties smile and shake hands. Across every single metric, no people accept a worse deal than Americans today. High taxes, high cost of living for next to nothing in return from the government. The most expensive healthcare system for the worst health outcomes. More money taken from workers for the highest rate of child poverty. We are the richest country in the history of the world, but we have fewer miles of high-speed rail than Uzbekistan. We are the greatest country in the world, yet we have the most people in prison of any country, and the highest incarceration rate as well, and a higher rate of police killings than in Angola and Sudan. America is bad at everything because instead of choosing to make life better for people through a public healthcare system or more generous childcare policies or better public transit or programs that allow people to spend more time with their families, American law is designed and crafted to protect a class of parasitical middleman industries. Instead of using a proportionally tiny piece of the massive amount of the wealth in this country to make people's lives healthier and happier, most of our elected leaders are, and have been for generations, engaged in a massive project of looting, gently and lovingly guiding as much money as possible from working people into the pockets of the well-connected and the ultra-rich. Think about that as we start hearing about the inevitable rise in homelessness, poverty, starvation, and sickness that will occur during these coming months and years in the greatest, strongest, richest, most powerful country on the face of the earth.
They hate people.
I'm David Cross for the Gravel Institute.
Yeah. So what you think about it?
Our government hates us. And you wonder why they have fucking people that act like the damn Trump minions act the way they act. Like, I mean, people, like, you wonder why we have such disgruntled humans, like people, like, you have to really look at the top because everything trickles down, you know, and when the money is not being spread out the way it's supposed to be, the people who bust their ass, you know, working, you know, 60, 80 hours a week to, you know, provide for their family, that's still not enough money for them to even really, you know, invest in their own future. You know, you're getting taxes sucked up, you know, like, it's really simple and plain. Like, our government hates us, and we, you know, there's some who follow and think that, oh, everything they're doing is the greatest, and then there's the other side that is like, no, hell no, this shit has got to, like, this is like further than disappointment. Like, this is like, what do you do? Like, every, you know, they always put a Band-Aid on some shit as if, you know, well, no, it's because of this. Like, sometimes I feel like all these different branches of government, you know, really kind of enables the system to bullshit us because they can, keep blaming this person, that person. The Republicans wouldn't sign it, the Democrats, they want to, we can't agree to, this, that, and the other, blah, blah, blah. Like, what the fuck are y'all there for? Like, y'all supposed to be there to be able to work with each other regardless of what a fucking party is, because it's about us. It's supposed to be about us. The homelessness, like, I mean, shit, kids go to school, they gotta, if you are a kid in school, none of them have a job. You know what I'm saying? Because you're forcing everybody to go to school or, some kind of school or whatever. So if a kid's in school, like, some of them can't even eat when they get there because, and look, I'm going to tell you, I mean, I never had problem eating lunch, but because my mom made a little more than, over the poverty level, she still had to pay a certain amount for me to still go and eat at school. The shit is just, it's so fucked up because, I mean, of course, we're jumping into different government sectors because, we're looking at parish money over federal money or state money, funds or whatever. Because when it comes down to schools, you're looking at parish or counties.
Yeah, but either way, there's no reason why the kids should have to fucking pay. They have fucking something for lunch. What the fuck?
Exactly.
And we fell in that too, my family, because my dad made a little bit more too. So we didn't qualify for free lunch, and my dad had to pay. And that was a thing. That was definitely a thing.
And then college. Say you do go to college, and that part is really fucked up. Like, there's countries that no matter where you're from in the world, if you decide you want to go to their school, you go to their school for free.
Mm-hmm.
What if all Americans decided, but of course of football and basketball, sports identity, and this, that, and the other, a lot of people aren't going to go out of this country to college because of, well, my mom and my dad went to this one and blah, blah, blah. Fucking.
And plus, it's hard, man. It's expensive. You're going to have to, where are you going to live? It's going to make things more difficult. Even if it is free, you're away from your family and shit, it should be here. Why the fuck can't we do that here?
And yeah, there's no reason why it shouldn't. But like
and guess what? That's one of the things that got cut out of the reconciliation bill. It hasn't yet, but it looks like it's gonna fall off. The 2 years of community college, 2 years free community college is in the reconciliation bill, and that's about to get chopped because they say they need to find ways to cut the bill because the amount is too high.
Yeah, I think there's more in that bill than meets the eye, but I've heard different arguments, and the Republicans are fighting it mostly because of the amount, but I'm sure there's other reasons in there other than just the amount.
The other reasons are they just don't want nobody to have shit. They only want to give the money away to their buddies, which is what the infrastructure bill is.
But that's what's been happening to that money. Like, if all of the money that, now we think about, if we go back to even just the 90s, all of the money that was put together in our tax dollars, like right now, our country should be like the most efficient, the most, like, everything should be like already in tip top condition if the right things were done.
People don't pay attention to politics enough. Every cycle, because like Trump, when Trump got in there, he rolled back a whole shit ton of support services related to WIC, grants, food stamps, Social Security too. All of that shit got cut. People who were on SSI, people who were on like my cousin. I got a cousin who for his whole life since he was a kid, he was on the, you know how they say crazy check. He got a crazy check. When Trump was in office, they cut his check off. That nigga been homeless since then. And it's a real thing. It's a real thing. That's what I'll be saying, that people don't, because they don't follow politics enough. You're right. But that's in the 90s. That's when they started rolling a lot of shit back. A lot of shit back. It really kind of started in the 80s, but it was the 90s where they fucking upscaled that shit. Bill Clinton championed that shit. You know, welfare queens and all of that bullshit.
Well, and you know, honestly, like I mean, the principles of the Bible even say if you don't work, you don't eat. Now, of course, like I mean, I have a brother that you know, he gets SSI or whatever, and you know, like I think that it should exist, but when it gets to a point where people see more benefit in staying at home and being able to collect money instead of like, because I mean, all of the stuff that it goes back to, like, all right, the minimum wage, the you know, like what people actually get, you know, for going to work for all these hours, not being able to be with their kids. I mean, these welfare queens are freaking smart as hell as far as I'm concerned, because it's like, okay, if I can get this money and I can actually be the one that's raising my kids and you know being there or whatever, like, or even just not having to work to be able to get X amount of dollars, and they can hustle up whatever else they come up with. I mean, shit, a lot of these things were set up like the system is screwed. Like if you know, the incentive of actually being a winner, like be like you, if you go out there and work and you can create, you know, like whether even if it's just a wage job, you can go to work and you can feel proud that, damn, I went out and I did this, I was able to do this for my family, blah blah blah. But if I go bust my ass and I still end up with nothing, I'm still in the middle of a hood or you know, projects or whatever it is, you know, would be busting my ass. Like what's the point? You know what I'm saying? There's so many things that need to, you know, be revisited, looked at differently, because the monies that's available could do. I mean, and then stop spending so much money in other fucking countries. Like,
Exactly.
you know,
But that's again, this is all related to people being aware of the politics, because they don't understand what the fuck is happening and they like it that way. And the media keeps everybody confused and fighting about stupid shit, because the corporations are the ones that's running away with the bank and they run the media. So they got everybody all fucking confused and shit. So, but what I'm saying is that we don't pay attention enough to know, like, we should be having transparency so we know where this money is going and then hold people accountable.
but people talk shit about the Republicans, but they're the ones that saying like, okay, look, we were in this same situation just a couple of years ago, and all the things that, you know, was in this big plan still haven't happened. So like, why are we gonna sign off on some shit where we know that it's only destroying us as a country even more?
It's not. It's totally not. We have the money. That's what I'll be saying about the debt thing. We have the money.
We have the money. It's about the way it's getting spent, and that's the problem that most Democrats have, is the way it gets spent. Not so, I mean, because if shit was happening, I don't think they would be arguing the way that they are. The shit is like, that's what I'm saying. Like
No, and look, it's our system. We had the Republicans in charge, then we have the Democrats in charge, and we go back and forth, and then we point fingers at each side, and this happens every fucking cycle. And meanwhile, the people not getting shit. So like, as far as there wasn't Trump didn't do no big fucking plan or nothing. He didn't come out with nothing. He came out with that damn tax bill. That's all he did while he was in there. He didn't come out with no fucking plan or nothing. Like, the Republicans didn't have no plan for shit. They had a plan for tax breaks. That's it. And then they come back and say we don't have money.
That's the thing. People were prospering better, and right now they're just going to use, oh well, COVID came, and use that as an excuse. But no, that's not really a good excuse, because, like, man, like especially black people were doing way better than what they were under Obama, under Trump, and I think even right now, even under, like, they did better under Trump than they're doing under Biden.
Yeah. Trump was only in there for 4 years.
And that's the point.
So you telling me all these people, all these black people's lives switched to better when Trump was in there, and then switched back to worse after Trump left, just like that, within 4 years?
Yes.
No, there's so did your situation change like that over the 4 years?
Well, it benefited me as far as the taxes at that point, but I mean, shit, a lot of the rates in which I was like for the loads and things like that. I mean, right now the only reason why I'm seeing high rates now is because of how high the damn fuel is. So I mean, I'm still not, like, I guess it's still kind of equal, because I my gross is higher, but I still pay more money on fuel within just this year.
And fuel don't have shit to do with fucking Trump or Biden.
It does. It has a lot to do with it.
That's another thing I be saying all the time, that we think that the politicians have more power than they do. They don't have that kind of power.
They do.
That power comes from the oil.
When you get a chance, you find out how the rates of fuel goes up. The president has a lot to do with it.
Well, they can control those taxes, because a big part of the fuel is the tax.
That's the thing, and they're the ones who's controlling that's where the money really.
They could just cut those taxes that's on the gas, and that would drop the prices on the gas.
Exactly.
But they don't control the cost of the gas. You know what I'm saying?
But they're controlling the price of the gas by raising tax on fuel. Like, that's so simple. Like, they're being able to change, like, the gross amount of the fuel is coming out because of the rate of taxes on the fuel.
And you're sold on the idea that the Democrats make the taxes more and the Republicans make the taxes less. But it's not necessarily true. It's more complicated.
Either it's true or it's not.
Well, it's more complicated than that. It's true sometimes. That's what I would say. And sometimes it's not.
I don't know. I mean, because I get, for some reason, I have a bone to pick with both sides, but there's certain things, because like I said, for me, if it's going to benefit the majority of people, I'll take somewhat of a loss. Like I said, I mean, as far as taxes go, I mean, if people are actually benefiting from whatever monies that they're taking, and we actually see it in our day-to-day life, where like, if I don't have to dig in my pocket because I'm feeling bad about some homeless person on the street, like, that's another tax that we're not even taking into account when we helping other people that can't make it by. We got family members who only getting paid X amount and can't really cover their bills, and you don't want to see them in that situation. You dig in your pocket to help them. So what I'm saying, like, if these tax dollars was actually being used the right way, like, all of us, like, there would be.
Yeah, but look at what your argument is. Your argument is they don't spend the tax dollars correctly, so then
just give them more money to fuck up.
Yeah, so I'm against all of and I hear that argument all the time. It's I'm against whatever they spend it on, because they just gonna waste it. But meanwhile, everybody is still suffering. So where's the solution? There's no solution in that way of
Yes.
thinking.
No, it is. I mean, it's too simple for people to grasp. It's like, oh no, it can't be that simple, but it is.
Well, what is it? What are you saying?
When you're building a budget, it has to be specifics. These are different. Like when law is very specific, it's supposed to be specific, but then you have these budgets built up for this and that or what the third. But if you really care about how this money is being spent, and then based on the time, if it's built on time, because you should want to see certain things done within a certain period of time. You don't give somebody 10 years to get the shit right and to kind of play around with this money, starting a job here and then stopping because they can go run down the street. No, you let another contractor take on that job down there. Let it spread the wealth. Don't just being able to use one contractor for all the freaking jobs. You're putting other people out of business because you want to give the money to the one guy or one company. Like, bruh, it's
So you saying we have to force like restrictions, or we have to force certain stipulations on how the money is spent.
yes.
And I agree with that. So, but how you do that is by having people actually politically engaged in the details of what's happening. And nobody wants to engage in that. They fall asleep.
But that's the thing. The people, like, honestly, the people should not have to engage in it. That's why they get paid to do this job. And we should be able to just sit back and enjoy our American, like our America, because we are paying y'all to do this shit fucking right.
I agree with you, but that's not the reality. That's so far from it.
I understand. See, I understand the reality, but what I'm saying is, by us being, I get your point, because you're right. Because us being at this point, we do need to be more active because they're not getting it right. But we shouldn't have to, because we have hired you guys to do the shit and believing in you to do the job right.
And I agree with you on that. It's just that, that is not happening, and we have to do something. We can't just be like, because what I'm saying is the Republicans' arguments on everything is it's fucked up. That's it, and that's the argument.
Fucked up?
Everything's fucked up. The system is fucked up. This is fucked up. That's fucked up. That's the argument. The money, and that's true. But that where how does that lead to a solution?
Well, I mean, for one, like, okay, we're not hearing every conversation, because the few conversations that we do hear on the news, that's just something to really get you, tear jerkers, like things to get you emotionally
sensationalized,
riled up. But I mean, honestly, in my opinion, overall, I mean, do Republicans have it all right? Probably not, but I think they have a better interest in actually what happens with the country, and is not being just totally, ridiculous, like acting like, this is my first time seeing money, and I'm gonna just, act like we didn't fuck up 5 years ago, or we didn't just fuck up 10 years ago, like we've been fucking up for the last 100 years. Can we do something fucking different?
But you're sold on this Republican, and I said this before because you was talking about both wings, but you're sold on this idea that they're different.
Because
they just go at the same agenda in different ways, both sides.
I believe more in conservatism.
But because a lot of those politicians they flip sides, and they can, whatever career path is, what the fuck, they don't give a damn about Republican or Democrat.
But why do they switch sides? Whether they Republican or Democrat, why they end up switching sides?
That's what I'm saying. My point is they don't really care. It's not
no, wherever the money is for them.
It's not philosophical. They don't care about no conservatism or liberalism.
Exactly, and we have
they don't care.
we have to hold them to a higher degree of.
But we get stuck in the categories of the Republican and the Democrat.
No.
Like I say, and you said it before, the
I
policies. We have to focus on the policies,
yeah,
and also focus on the individual
because
politicians.
I would scream out fucking Democrats if they was actually doing the right fucking thing. But the better arguments actually come from the Republicans, in my opinion.
But that's where I'm saying that's where you get lost, is because
I'm not lost. I'm not lost.
Good arguments. You got good arguments that come from both sides, and you got bad arguments that come from both sides. Okay. That's a reality.
The whole so when the Republicans are telling them that, well, no, we need better accountability for what we're doing with this money, and then for one, we've been spending too much. Like, we can pay off some of our debt and still be working toward a goal. Do we have to do all of this stuff for the next 10 years right now, when we can, let's see what, where this goes in the next 2 years, and then, if everything is working out, okay, then we can expand on that from here to there.
But you can't even start if you don't have the budget. And like what you're saying is impossible to get all of this done within 3 years and then don't spend no money.
It's not.
You're gonna have to, the amount that they're talking about, you're gonna have to triple or quadruple it to get things done the way that you're saying. And then they won't even spend the amount that's on the table right now.
That's not true, because if now, there's nothing wrong with having a long-term plan, but you need to do step-by-step process, so that, not only the Republicans can see, but like just the people in general can see that there's real growth happening, and that, these dollars are not just going to waste, because like we got people who charging $100 an hour for these contracts, when they're fucking lollygagging on the project. Like, and you shouldn't. Until they one contractor is able to complete the first deal, they shouldn't be able to get another deal.
I agree with that, what you're saying, but these are not. You are not. This is not. This argument doesn't lead to solutions. Because it's kicking the can down the road.
No, because you and other people like you will argue with, no, that's not good enough. That doesn't make enough sense, when it makes all the sense in the world. But you want to be able to let them do the bullshit that they've been doing that has not given us any progress. Like, it's okay to do the same thing and get the same results.
Because of this argument right here is the reason why we haven't been able to get any results, is because we always pull back. We're like, oh, that's a good idea, but how much is it going to cost? Oh, well, we don't have the money for that, so no, we're going to have to figure out another way.
In your own home, in your very own home, do you buy groceries for the next 2 years? Do you buy groceries for the next 10 years?
Never.
And then just be like, well, we'll have this, and we'll figure out how we'll get rid of it no.
But that's not a good analogy.
I think it is.
Food is perishable.
Do you pay up your light bill for fucking 2 years?
If you could, that would be a smart thing to do. If you had the money, why not? Pay up your rent, pay up your mortgage. Hell yeah, you already know you're gonna spend it.
All right, the guy that well, I don't know. Would you give not knowing what kind of weather might come about, and this, that, and the other? The guy that cuts the grass, like, do you just give them a 5-year lump sum of money at just a regular rate that you would pay them week to week, or every other week, or once a month, or however you pay them? Like, to me, it doesn't make sense, because in 5 years you might realize, I don't want to be here anymore. I'm gonna move to another place, and this dude is, he doesn't live in the area where you want to live at. So it doesn't make sense that you paid him 5 years worth, or 2-3 years worth of lawn service, and then you won't be able to use it anymore because, okay, for one, like to me, if the project is going to take 10 years, all right, where would you start? Okay, well, we should start with doing this and this and that. I mean, you know, you start with those things. It's like, oh, okay, y'all doing great. This is blah blah blah. All right, well, as soon as y'all finish with this, or when you're like maybe 3 months out of finishing with this one job, now we can we can negotiate on you working on another gig because there's other people. Shoot, I mean, because you can actually use these different
They do that.
contractors.
They do that. They do that. They do that. They be having stipulations like that in the contracts, and the people can lose the contracts, and it can go to other people. They really do have stuff like that already out there. They do. And that again, like I say, a lot of this has to do with knowing how things work and what's actually happening out there, and digging through the details. And that's what the people don't want to do.
Okay, so if that's happening, then why do I go through the same place for fucking a whole year? Some places I remember it being like that for probably about 3 years.
But you don't know what's happening behind the scenes in none of those situations. Contractors could have changed, all
No.
kinds of details. You don't know what's going on.
Okay, and that's the thing. We should know what's going on. If a contractor wasn't able to finish, then we should hear where our fucking state is suing their ass for not finishing the fucking job.
But you're not gonna. The media is not gonna cover stuff like that.
All right, you giving excuses for them, like
They're not gonna cover stuff like that because people people not gonna click on those videos. I watch that kind of shit all the time, and these are the videos that don't get no views.
Okay. Well,
or reading the news stories.
So you tell me, when was the last time you heard of them, actually suing contractors or, giving giving us an explanation on why certain things aren't being done anywhere in the country or whatever?
Yeah, I haven't seen no stories like that. No time recently. I mean, I have seen them in the past, but I haven't.
Because a lot of them are friends with people down there in politics, and they can't wait for them to sign this bill because they know they're gonna be the first ones to get the project, and then they suck up all of this stuff, and then they start trying to subcontract to other guys that will go ahead and get the job done because they've the primary guy is actually putting stipulations on them, where the government can do that to begin with, and still and may not be able to may not have to spend as much money altogether.
The media don't cover stories like this because they're not going to make money off of that. The media is all about making money. People not interested in stories like that. It's not going to get no clicks. You know what I'm saying? They'd rather cover something else. That's the reason why that is not on your screen or on your scroll. Doesn't mean that it's not happening. And again, like I say, these are all reasons to not do stuff. Like, and that's what I be talking about all the time. We be having reasons to not do stuff. How come we can't come up with reasons to do stuff?
So what about what is it that's in the infrastructure bill that actually has you're like, this gotta get done? Like, we can't keep, like, tell me what's in it that you see that is
the reconciliation bill is the one that I'm screaming about, because that's
what's
the one.
in it. What's in it? Not the name of
the child care one. That shit needs to pass. The fucking free community college, that shit needs to fucking pass. You know what I'm saying? That's one of the clips that they're trying to take. I got a video actually on what they're going to take out of the bill. Hold on, let me see. Social spending bill. Did they talk about it in this one? This might be it.
The size of the president's proposed social spending bill could be significantly reduced after the president took a more prominent role in negotiations. The first major item that appears to be out is tuition-free community college for everyone. It is a sacrifice in order to lower the price to get all Democrats on board. Guaranteed paid family leave could also be reduced from 12 weeks to possibly 4. What is likely to be preserved is Medicare expansion, universal pre-K, and a one-year extension of the child tax credit. Now, this all comes as Democrats are facing a self-imposed deadline to pass social spending and the infrastructure bill by the end of the month. For more on all of this, I want to bring in Congresswoman Mikey Sherrill. She represents New Jersey's 11th congressional district. Congresswoman Sherrill,
And they already been
joining us.
cutting it,
So
cutting
let's
it,
start with
cutting
the
it.
possible concessions. Free community college is potentially being cut. Guaranteed paid family leave is potentially being reduced. What is your reaction to cutting those items, both of which the president fought quite hard for? And what's your thought of the bill being scaled down from $3.5 trillion to just under $2 trillion?
Sure. Thanks so much for having me. I think we've known for some time that the size of the bill was going to be coming down. So we've been looking at what is it that we can invest in to make the most amount of impact for Americans. And that's what we're looking at now. These are critical issues that are going to invest in our economy for the next several decades. So when we look at things like universal pre-K, making sure people have expanded access to that is so important as we educate the future workforce. Making sure we have childcare in there. As you know, some of the worst hit people in this nation after COVID have been women. And women accounted for over half of our workforce pre-COVID, which was actually quite shocking to me and I'm sure to many of your listeners. So it's really important that we invest in childcare and ensure that they have the means to re-enter the workforce. In fact, the recent jobs numbers were really dismaying when we saw 26,000 women losing jobs while over 200,000 men gained jobs. And that didn't even include the 300,000 women that had just quit looking for work.
Right, and you have made this a big issue for you. You made the child care benefit nearly universal in the Build Back Better Act. Universal pre-K and a one-year extension of the child tax credit are likely to be preserved. But what do you feel about these other parts of it that might not last? You know, tell us about why the issue of child care is so important to you.
So part of the reason it's so important to me is, quite frankly, I have 4 children of my own, and I can tell you firsthand how difficult childcare is for working parents across the country. Before COVID in New Jersey, there were about 2 children for every 1 spot in child care centers. Now that situation that was already at a really bad point has become a crisis in this country. Now in New Jersey, there are about 5 children for every 1 spot. In a recent discussion with a child care center, the owner of that center was telling me she takes calls all day long from people desperately searching for a safe, affordable place to put their child as they try to get back to work.
And Congresswoman, as you know,
And you know, if you have more than one child, like, and I know you know how much freaking that shit costs. Why the F does freaking daycare cost so fucking much? You know, and even for a shitty daycare, you finna pay out the ass. If you want something that's halfway decent and your baby not gonna get stabbed and mistreated, you're gonna have to really pay some fucking money.
Well, believe me, I've been there.
You know, and I don't understand. The thing is, that people don't really have arguments for these programs. They just have arguments for how much is it going to cost and where's the money going to come from. You know.
Well, I don't know. I'm gonna just tell you. I mean, because somebody else is gonna pay somewhere else, and like we still haven't seen where. Because I think the real numbers of what's going on with you know, where the inflation is going to go, where bread and everything else goes up to freaking $5-6 or you know, some crazy number, like we still end up paying through inflation even after paying all these different regular taxes. So I mean, I think that's one of the fears, that you know, the unseen, the unknown, the stuff that actually unwinds after the fact is where a lot of people's worries are. Because you know, I don't think that really people are against like having, you know, free of school, but then there's going to be a cutoff somewhere, because something's going to have to give, and that is just, that's the way it's always worked. I mean, there's going to be industries that's going to shut down, you know, unless the government is willing to make up for the profits that they lose, which they're not, because they got businesses that they're invested in personally that they're going to be more concerned about than what they cares are doing or this, that, and the other. If they get the money that they really need, so I mean, I don't have anything against the schooling, like like I got family that I'm sure will need it or is needing it. If they don't need it now, down the road, I got young cousins and stuff that's going to be having kids. So, I mean, I see where the programs will, be good, but based on the history of our country and how these things turn out, they haven't been turning out that great after.
Because again, we don't follow the politics. The people come in and they defund these programs. They come in and they say, "Oh, we're spending too much money. We need to make cuts." First things that go are these kind of programs. And they don't work because they're not getting funding.
So who are we to look at for that?
What do you mean?
I mean, who's responsible for that? I mean, if it takes all the Senate and stuff to be able to get all that stuff going, like, how is, I mean, because most of them still there for decades, and at some point the same people who's fighting for it or fighting against it has something to say later on down the road where they end up cutting it. So I mean,
that's one of the problems is our system. But the system, like you said before, it works just the way it was designed to work, and that's the reason why it goes back and forth. The Democrats be in charge for 8 years or so, and then swings back to the Republicans. And again, the point of this is to make sure that don't nobody get shit and the corporations keep winning, period. And things pretty much stay the same. That's the point. And these arguments are to keep things to stay as they are happy with the state of things, with all of us suffering and them being good. They happy with these things. They don't want things to change. So the arguments they give us these arguments to argue about that just leads to nothing happening.
Yeah,
and things
I mean,
stand the same.
Yeah, and they find new terms to use to get you feeling like this is such a great thing. But I mean, we've been around long enough to see how a lot of these things still fail after being us being so caught up in it in the beginning, and that's one of the reasons why I think some people are kind of like, all right, let's reevaluate this thing maybe a few times before we actually sign off on this and that and the third, because okay, is this in place? And and nothing is going to be perfect. I definitely understand that nothing is going to work out perfect, but it needs to be better than what it was the last time.
But and again, we have to start somewhere. We keep kicking the can down the road. We got bridges that be collapsing and shit. They closed the bridge. I don't know when this was.
I have to take detours long way. Like I get to a place and it's like, damn, this thing is fucking shut down. All right, so look, these things affect me directly.
And when are we gonna spend the money? If we keep saying, right now is not the time to spend the money.
But
when
no,
is the time?
Nobody said that you don't. Like, there's some things that I think that some people are, like, I honestly feel like Biden wants, he's shooting to be like the best president that did this. Trump was doing it. He was trying to be the one that he can, mark that he can be marked in history as the one who did this and who did that to be, so they can be the greatest. So here comes these big audacious plans that is supposed to make them look better now, and then down the road, like, it doesn't even matter anymore. You know what I'm saying? Like,
but I don't care about what their motivations are. And you could be 100% true. That could be 100% right, but it don't even matter because, like, a lot of the stuff, what was it, FDR? A lot of the stuff he did was fucking good, bro. Like, and that's still going
Well,
to this day.
and I mean, and you bring up FDR, like we're supposed to go under Reconstruction through him, but all of a sudden, a lot of those same things that was supposed to change, they didn't because of we got
But
people come in that's
but but a lot of things did. A lot of things did, as far as like the racial shit didn't work out. Reconstruction did
no.
not work out.
No, socially, I think things change. But as far as what really matters economically, shit, black people still make the same money that they were making in the 1800s.
No. I mean, I agree with you to a certain extent as far as, but look, you're missing it. You said it backwards. No, socially things did not improve. No,
No,
they did not.
people,
Economically, they did. FDR came out with all that shit, Social Security, all that shit, bro. All those
that's
social programs, welfare,
that's broken.
food stamps.
Okay, I understand, but I mean, see, and that's another crutch that I don't know was real because honestly, most if it shouldn't be where more people want to be a part of those programs. Now, Social Security is one thing that I'd say, yeah, that would benefit the actual wage earner much better because that's something, a savings or something that was supposed to grow for you to have in your old age when you're not able to work or you get to some disability or some shit like that. But when you start creating programs like welfare, food stamps, and this, that, and the other, where these same people, like the reasons why they need it is because, the corporations won't pay the living wage.
And I agree with that, but you can't just, so you're okay with people starving? Cut all the food stamp programs and then just start putting pressure on the businesses, and then the businesses are gonna just pay people more, and then they're gonna have enough food to eat.
I think that because if it's a temporary thing where because it takes time for a lot of these things to actually start really playing a part, where people are able to actually see it happening in their lives, or even where even if it starts right away to where they can at least build up to a certain point. But at the same time, when that's becoming the first thing that people think is the best way to survive is just to go on these different programs, then no, it's not beneficial all the way around.
I get your argument, and I agree with you about like people being stuck in a box. And like my cousin with the SSI check, I used to tell him all the time, bro, you can get more money if you just go out there and get you some more money, But he's like, oh, they're gonna cut my check and shit if I make money.
And then it's too late because in his mind, this is what he's got. He don't stress and he don't worry about
I agree with that, but
yeah.
you have to have these social programs. You cannot let no one fall through the cracks and just starve and be on homeless. On people die. I saw a story about people fucking freezing to death because they're homeless. You know what I'm saying? That is some crazy shit. In New York, they have those vents that come up from the subway or whatever, and they're heated. Well, it's hot air because it's coming out of the subway. So, and then they have to have those vents so that they can have air circulation. So, and then you have homeless people who lay on those vents on those cold nights, and it keeps them alive. Guess what New York did? They put spikes and shit all over these vents, so these people can't lay on those vents. This don't cost nobody nothing.
Well, I mean, and I'm sure it costs them money just to go get those spiked vents.
Exactly.
So, I mean, look, we have to just really call it what it is. I mean, the system is just total. It's totally corrupt, and regardless of who we might uplift, from time to time, because like I said, I mean, there's certain things. I'm an independent. I mean, right now, I used to lean more to Democrats before now, but because of what I've been seeing in the last few years, especially since Obama, like I don't see where they really give a shit. They give us the best lip service, They, you know, make us feel all
And the
fuzzy, you know,
Republicans don't give a
warm,
shit either.
warm and
They don't. They don't. Don't be thinking like that. Don't think like that. They don't give a shit. Don't not.
but that's how I think. I'm
They,
just,
they
I'm
don't
giving
have the
you,
moral high ground. They don't have it. They don't. And the Democrats
it's
don't either.
since we're left with picking the
Same
best,
bird.
the best out of you know, the greater of the two evils, then the Republicans are the greater of the two evils at this point in time.
It's the same bird. It's the same bird. You talking about the left wing or the right wing? It's the same bird. His wing is flapping more.
This is Democracy Now! I'm Amy Goodman.
his wing is flapping more better now than.
Yeah, exactly. At least we agree on that.
Let's listen to a little bit of this, because I was talking about this lady before. She's gonna win because in the Democratic, she won the primary, and this is a Democratic district, so they automatically win. But they're trying to stop her. Check it out.
Shocked the Democratic establishment in June when she defeated the Buffalo
and this shows that the
Mayor
Democrats
Byron Brown in the Democratic
are haters
primary.
too.
India Walton is a black single mother. She's a registered nurse, a longtime community activist, and a self-described socialist. But many of the state's top Democrats, including Governor Kathy Hochul and Senator Chuck Schumer, are refusing to endorse her in the general election. The Buffalo mayor, Byron Brown, is now running a write-in campaign in an attempt to stay in office, but she already defeated him. On Monday, the chair of the state's Democratic Party, Jay Jacobs, was asked by Spectrum News about why many Democrats are not endorsing Walton.
Let's take a scenario.
That's an easy answer.
Where David Duke, remember him, the Grand Wizard of the KKK? He moves to New York. He becomes a Democrat. And he runs for mayor in the city of Rochester, which has a low primary turnout, and he wins the Democratic line. I have to endorse David Duke? I don't think so. Now, of course, India Walton isn't in the same category, but it just leads you to that question: is it a must? It's not a must.
That was Jay Jacobs, the chair of the New York State Democratic Committee. He later apologized because of enormous outcry. Congressmember Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez responded by tweeting, quote, Jay Jacobs absolutely should resign over his disgusting comments comparing a black single mother who won a historic election to David Duke. India Walton is the Democratic nominee for mayor of Buffalo. No amount of racist misogyny from the old boys club is going to change that, she said. AOC will be heading to Buffalo Saturday to campaign with India Walton. This comes as nearly 2,000 nurses at South Buffalo's Mercy Hospital are on strike, one of many strikes underway nationwide this month, and India Walton is a nurse. With Election Day less than 2 weeks away, we go now to Buffalo, where we're joined by India Walton. If she wins in November, she'll be the first mayor of a major American city in decades who identifies as socialist. India Walton, welcome to Democracy Now! Congratulations on your victory in the Democratic primary. Are you also calling for the head of the state Democratic Party to resign? And talk about what your platform is.
Good morning, Amy. Thank you for having me. I am hyper-focused on the next week and a half, approximately a little more than that, and winning the general election convincingly enough to let people know that the voters of Buffalo is who is calling for a change in leadership. You know, I think what Jay Jacobs said about me is unfortunate and misguided, but I'm definitely not focused on that. I don't have the energy. I don't have the space in my heart for too much anger, because right now I am running for mayor of Buffalo as an expression of love.
And India Walton, I wanted to ask you, you were not only a nurse, you were a union delegate of 1199 SEIU. Clearly, the labor movement was a big supporter of yours. How do you react, not so much to Jay Jacobs, but just to the refusal of the Democratic Party in general to endorse the candidate who won the primary?
Yeah.
You know, the way I see this race right now is a class struggle, right? We have the managers and leaders against the shop and the workers.
Yes.
And as a union delegate, I would often experience that dichotomy. We didn't always agree. The members didn't always agree with the leadership, and that's fine. And I think I have the benefit and the honor of being a boots on the ground organizer who was able to go into neighborhoods, into communities, knock on doors, and have conversations with the people who matter, and that's the voters. So while it's my hope that established Democratic leaders would endorse and support, that's not who I'm here for. I'm here for the voters of Buffalo. And I would add that, the chair of my local party, the Erie County Democratic Committee, even though they endorsed my opponent pre-primary, they have come on board after I won and been true to their word of supporting the Democratic nominee. My assembly person, John Rivera, is in support. My county legislator, April Baskin, is in support. And my state senator, Sean Ryan, is also in support. So, there's a few people who are
housing shaped your decision to run for office?
Yeah, the Fruitvale Community Land Trust came out of that community's desire to stay in place to protect homeowners from huge increases in their tax bills as a result of reassessments and rising rents. And the prior administration had a policy of demolition as a means to combat blight in the community. So there were 200 city-owned vacant lots in the Fruitvale neighborhood that folks really wanted to put to productive use, but also.
Okay, I don't want to bore you out to death.
I like her, and I don't think she needs their endorsement, because the main thing is that the people support, which it seems that she's getting, is going to be good enough. And but we're looking at this is a city thing, so I think the grassroots is able to be strong more locally, because you're not, the word is getting out in the areas it needs to be, but she don't need their endorsement. I think she'll win it either way because of what she's actually stands for, and because, like I said, it's a local election, and that's that she has a track record of working in that realm for the people. So I don't think she's gonna have a problem. Like that's but that the biggest thing that these the Schumers and the other Pelosi's and whoever, the different people that she might be looking for an endorsement from, they're scared as hell of people like her, because she challenges everything that they are.
Right. And I think that the reason why I brought her up, and she's very interesting, I hope you guys out there listening learn more about her, but I'm hoping that she shows the direction of politics in the future, where we should be going. This should be the backlash of, and it doesn't matter which party, the people that get the posts, they should be regular folks who really care. You know what I'm saying? And they're not in it to make money.
I think the party's really confused shit. Honestly, I really don't believe in it. I don't think that helps anything at all.
It's confusion.
It is more confusion. There's more way to separate people, and it would regardless of what that person's political identification identity is, then, and all they had to do is rely on what their policies are, so what they believe in and what they're working for.
Exactly.
It should be based on that, period.
And that's why the way we could do that is by taking big money out of politics and make it so where that all the politicians have to run off of donations from the people, and they can't get big donations from anybody.
Yeah, they should not be able to get these big checks from any corporate entities. And if you do get money from them, it's because you got it from them personally.
And it has to be a small amount.
And it should be a max.
Yeah. So, and that would fix that overnight, but they don't want to do that. And again, this is something that we should be talking about, related to elections and election integrity, but we're not. We're talking about all this other shit. Take the money out of the politics. This will help both sides. Now, who would argue with this? I don't think the Democrats or the Republicans, the actual voters, would have a problem with that.
But see, but that's the thing. I mean, we've been sold this whole idea, this like we're this whole gang banging bull crap has been going on for so long, to where a lot of people, and we know that the majority of people are lazy, so they're not going to do the research. They're not. Some of them probably won't even get the vote. I think, like in the last big election, like we're still looking at only half of Americans voting at all.
I think it's more like 20%, and we're low. We're lower than a lot of countries in the world.
Well, I think it being the biggest turnout, I think we end up getting to half of the country that actually votes either one way or the other. But that's like the biggest thing that they've been able to sell us on and keep us all pretty much enslaved to the system is being able to use this whole duality thing, which duality works great in the universe, but when that duality, that there's no specific direction of the duality, like there's that one side is not so strongly, like the Republicans are not so strongly on one way to where it doesn't fit into some of the other things that Democrats might feel as strongly about or whatever. Like in between fights, you may find somebody who was on the Republican Party leaning more toward the Democratic views, and you end up pulling people different ways. So that's why I'm like, this in politics, it may not be the best way to have these multiple.
And then it's an illusion of choice, anyways. It's kind of like how the whole way we do things here in America was Coke or Pepsi. You know what I'm saying? Republican or Democrat, pretty much. And then it's the illusion of choice. Like I say, all the brands are owned by the same company. They'll have the two different brands. You think they're two different brands, but they're owned by the same company, sitting next to each other on the shelf.
Well, look, and the thing about it is Americans are not monolithic or just dualistic. There's so many different levels of the way that we are day to day, is that, okay, if it's not just one party or no party, or there's going to be 5 or 6 parties. Like that's the only way I can see where, there could end up being somewhat of fairness.
It's like that in the UK.
So, but I mean, honestly, I think that nobody should be able to use any kind of party identity. They just go out there on the shit that they promise the people, and then when they meet the expectations of the people, all the things that they said, they get another chance at staying in office. But if they don't, then you got to go. Like, you got to meet a certain scorecard, have a good enough report card to be able to get to the next fucking race.
Yeah, I think they could. I don't know about this, but I think they could eliminate the parties altogether.
Yeah, that's why I say either one party or no party.
Yeah, that way everybody just runs on their own merit. That's it.
But that's too hard for them to do. Like, what? You want me to stand on my 2 feet?
Yeah, you can't rely on the party, and they just carry you. Check this out. The thing, what I was saying is, the thing is, I really believe is serious. The powder keg of America, and the big story of Trump keep pushing about the election being rigged, and he that's a big deal.
President Trump's term ended on January 20th, but his big lie that he only lost the election because of voter fraud has kept on growing. And if you take a look at everything that's happened since he left office, you realize it's not an accident. Trump and his allies pushed bogus investigations into states he lost. The first was in Arizona, where the state Senate announced they were going to hire an independent and, quote, qualified auditing firm to conduct a review of the election in Maricopa County. The firm, called Cyber Ninjas, had never conducted an election audit before, and their CEO had previously promoted the Stop the Steal movement, so neither qualified nor independent. Per usual, Trump attacked anyone who dared to stand up to him, even if they were in his own party. At the conservative confab CPAC, he named every single Republican who had voted to impeach him the second time.
Adam Kinzinger, Dan Newhouse, Anthony Gonzalez, that's another few.
This enemies list had been tacitly endorsed by the GOP. Any voice unwilling to go along with the big lie is increasingly unwelcome. The result? By March, 1/3 of Americans said they didn't believe President Biden fairly won the election. Republicans realized their base was really buying into all this, and they started making it a major focus of their campaigning, and donors were more than happy to give.
How do you feel about the election?
They've been making money off of
stolen?
this.
Yeah.
This whole
Riding
time.
that energy,
Oh, yeah, the
Republicans voted
ratings.
not to investigate the most
Everybody
violent
making
attack
money.
on the nation's capital since the Civil War, sort of endorsing an insurrection when an election doesn't go your way.
I do not believe the additional extraneous commission that Democratic leaders want would uncover crucial new facts or promote healing. Frankly, I do not believe it is even designed to do that.
I can't even believe him
So-called
because I
audit in
know
Arizona decided they
I don't know
wanted their own.
that dude there.
Republicans from
I
over
can't
a
believe
dozen
that he
other
doesn't
states
want them to
dropped by
investigate
see
that
the
shit.
operation for themselves. Several of those
Investigate
took
the what?
idea
The
home,
voting?
pushing for
The
so-called
January
audits in their
6th
own states.
Shit.
State legislatures
That's what
were
he was talking
hard at
about.
work writing solutions to a problem that really didn't
He's
exist.
like, it's not gonna help.
Quote, election integrity.
It's just
Most
gonna
of these
tear
new
the
laws
country
restrict
apart.
mail-in voting
Well, yeah,
by
because
doing
some of
things
his
like
some of his
decreasing
family
the
was
amount of
down
time
there.
people have to
That's what I'm
request and return a
saying.
ballot.
Out of anybody,
7 states
and right after it
having
happened, that
existing
nigga was
voter ID
pissed. Did you
rules
see that
or
shit?
Made up entirely new ones.
He got up there and was talking
Other
a lot of
laws targeted
shit.
election
The day
officials,
after, it was
like
the
in
day
Florida,
of.
where you can now be fined
was pissed at that time, but
$25,000 for leaving a ballot drop box unsupervised. In July, Texas Democrats went nuclear to try to stop one of these bills. They fled the state and headed to D.C., where they hoped federal lawmakers would help them out. But that didn't happen, and the bill passed in the Texas State House in August. In September, we learned another valuable lesson about how an attempted coup can get dressed up in fancy legalese. Then Vice President Pence had been given a memo that laid out 6 steps for overturning the election on January 6th. Legal scholars say this specific plan probably wouldn't work anyway, and the author of the memo, John Eastman, says his words were taken out of context. But it showed us that the coup might look less like these guys and more like this guy. And while those guys are plotting to invalidate your vote, next year, 26 states will choose their top election officials. In 5 battleground states, Arizona, Georgia, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Nevada, there are Republican candidates who have said that the presidential election was stolen or should be investigated. Georgia's Secretary
This
of
is
State
not a
is still
small
standing
thing,
by
bruh.
last year's election results, which may be why Trump has endorsed his primary challenger.
And it's gonna shape the next
I'm
election.
running for Secretary of State
Yeah.
to get rid of Brad Raffensperger right here in Georgia. We have got to restore election integrity in this state that Brad Raffensperger has destroyed.
Trump is endorsing candidates early on and in races that a former president normally wouldn't care about because he knows he might need them for the next election, but he'll still need people to vote, which is weird when you think about it. Why go vote if it's just going to be stolen? But there are still Trumpers ready to cast their ballots.
What do you want to hear from candidates that you're going to vote for? Like, what matters most to you, I guess?
2020.
Okay.
I mean, to me, election integrity and election reform is probably the top priority. If you don't care about election integrity, then you might as well not even be voting because most people are waking up now to realize that that's pretty important.
Do you think you'll vote in the 2022 midterms in 2020?
I definitely will, and I hope it's a good vote. I mean, I hope it really counts.
Obviously, we'll vote because if they're going to cheat, we're going to make it hard on them to cheat. We're not just going to quit, because that's not standing for America. But we're not. I mean, do we trust them? Not till they get these audits fixed and the election fixed from 2020.
I'd rather say that at least I voted than to say, well,
Somebody else can handle it.
And after months of post-presidency campaign-style rallies, Trump finally admitted to a group of revved-up supporters in Iowa why he keeps talking about the big lie.
The single biggest issue, the issue that gets the most pull, the most respect, the biggest cheers, is talking about the election fraud of 2020 presidential election. Nobody's ever seen anything like it.
He's right. This is the plan to undermine upcoming elections. Despite the fact that the big lie is causing millions of Americans to question the foundation of our democratic process, it's probably not going anywhere anytime soon.
What do you think about all that?
I don't know where to start.
First off, I'll say this is Vice. Vice is slanted as hell. But that doesn't make what all they were saying in this video not true. And Trump, this whole election integrity being the top, like the lady said, this is the top issue. Trump created that, and it's really out of his own selfishness. You know what I mean? I lost, so they cheated. You know what I'm saying? And now he got all these people on this shit, and it's really just all from a selfish place. We can go back to, like we said before in the other video, 2000, Al Gore. You know what I'm saying? A couple years ago, Bernie Sanders. So, there has been people who've gotten screwed, but I don't think Trump was one of them. And now he done made this whole thing into a thing where, it should have been a thing years ago. But again, we're not focusing on the actual integrity. We're focusing on the whole point of it, who votes and who doesn't vote. You know what I mean? Approved voters, people that, we want certain people to vote and we don't want certain other people, we don't want them to vote. That's really what it's about. What you think?
I don't think it's so much that. I think that's a part of what the narrative in which a lot of Democrats try to make it out to be, but I can't say that it's really that, because in order to have some fairness, you got to have, some boundaries set so that it can be more fair. Of course, there's still chances some people can get through and, maybe make the vote, even if it's that one vote. I really feel like it's more like I said, why wouldn't, if either party feels like they're offering the best thing that they could give people through politics or, through the government, if doing the right thing, then why wouldn't all of them want somebody to be able to vote? And I think because like right now, there's so many people who are leaning more toward the Democratic Party, blindly, because most of them don't even know why. My mama voted that way, blah, 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 such and so on. But for you to go and vote for somebody blindly without even really taking a look at the other party just to see, if it really matches up with what you want, what you need right now. Because, we split it up too much. Like, for the most part, Black people are voting Democrat no matter what, no matter how bad the person is. That's crazy. That's insane. That's insane, because now these people know, like, okay, you're gonna get X amount of votes from this group.
We don't have to give them shit because they're gonna vote for us regardless.
Yeah, and that's the part that really has to change for them to realize, oh, well, damn, they in high record numbers. Shoot, they 50%. If they ever did, because it was not at 50%. But if you're gonna really give some form of competition or allow for a certain level of competition between the candidates, like you really have to not be so, crip and bloodish. Just one got to pick blue, one got to pick red. Too much, black and white or whatever. We got to really stick to who wants to do the job fairly for everybody.
And we have to dig through the details and stop watching these major news stories and thinking we know what the hell is going on, because we don't. And, that's what's so annoying to me. Somebody watches one news show and they think they're an expert on a certain fucking topic, and you're not, you don't know. All you know is what they told you in that damn news story and also that, that news story had a point of view that it was trying to subtly give you to make you think you coming up with it on your own, but it was designed for you to come up with this, and then we fall for it every time. And the reason why we fall for it is because we don't take the time to actually dig through the details.
Yeah.
And like I say, what they kept saying big lie, and then I don't like the way they do that, because that's the same way the propaganda works in all directions. The whole thing with the communism, like I say, socialism and communism, the whole reason why America's is against socialism so hardcore is because of the Cold War, the Russian Cold War, and all of the propaganda that was related to that. It brainwashed a whole generation of people, and it was all propaganda. It was all propaganda. It was all propaganda. We got to remember that, because we were in the Cold War and they was afraid that Russia was going to take over the world. So they was like, they gave the Americans this fucking propaganda. Don't go down the socialism road or Russia's going to take over you. You're going to become a communist. And it's fucking bullshit. It was all a lie from the beginning. McCarthyism, they've debunked all this stuff. There's so much data out here related to this too. And what's crazy is everybody still believes this shit, and you can debunk it with a Wikipedia search.
Go bigger instead of asking us to go smaller.
Democratic Representatives Cori Bush and Jamal Bowman had a very lively appearance on CNN, tearing apart CNN's John Berman over his.
They're going to talk about the argument related to
these clips. I first want to
the
show you this clip
reconciliation
from
bill
yesterday involving Bernie and Joe Manchin. And the reason I'm showing you this is I want you to listen to the reporter's question at the end of
So I'm
this.
trying to get
This
people to
applies
know what
what
the
we're
fuck
discussing
is
with
going on, because don't nobody know. They're just hearing these fucking stories.
Get a picture of us, huh? We're talking.
Yeah, if they go with the basic algorithm,
We're talking. We're talking. We're gonna make some progress.
you get schooled.
Prepared to make some deep cuts to climate change and other things like that.
Listen to that question at the end. The only question there directed to a specific senator is directed to Bernie Sanders, asking if he's willing to have deep cuts to climate change and other provisions. Instead of maybe asking Joe Manchin, why did you break the promise to support $3.5 trillion? Why are you okay with cutting investments into the climate crisis when there is this climate crisis raging? Why are you okay with families not getting a child tax credit? But no, Bernie gets the question. Is he willing to cut more? As I've said a million times, framing, how media frames the discussion is everything. And that's what we get to hear with this CNN clip. So watch how CNN's John Berman here frames these questions. And in this case, you're going to have Cori Bush and Jamal Bowman tear him apart.
You talk about the people in your districts and what they're asking for. How do you tell them that the possibility of nothing is better than the possibility of everything?
But why is that the possibility? I'm sorry, Corey, go ahead.
No, but that's
Well, will you vote if it's a $1.5 trillion plan that gets to the floor? Will you vote against it?
But that's the expectation. The expectation is we will give you crumbs and expect you to be happy. What we're saying is I didn't come to Congress to continue to give crumbs to my community. St. Louis continues to get crumbs, and we keep being number one for homicides.
It started
number
at
one
9.
For homicides. Number one for police murder.
It's at 3.5
number one for the murder
now.
of children. We keep having those issues. We keep having issues with 10 black children being 10 times as likely to go to the hospital in emergency room for asthma than white children. How do we fix those things? You have to put the money there. And so I didn't come to Congress to sit back and accept those crumbs. Give my folks the meal. And That is why we're here to push that.
No, don't ask us why aren't we willing to compromise. Ask Joe Manchin, is he okay with violence in our communities continuing, public housing falling apart, Black and brown people disproportionately dying from COVID, the climate crisis? Ask him to go bigger instead of asking us to go smaller.
To be clear, we're asking every member, where they're going to go and where the possible agreements can be reached. Paul Begala was on earlier today and talked about progress versus perfection.
That's not even, but we're talking about a package that is not even perfection.
3.5 trillion was the compromise.
Right, that was the compromise. This is not
President
perfection.
Biden came in at 6 trillion.
Incredible job here by Jamal Bowman and Cori Bush. And I have a second clip coming up that adds even more context to the conversation. But before I get there, let me just discuss this. As I've said, framing is everything. It puts a particular perspective on the debate that limits the idea of what is possible. So in this case, CNN's sentiment is essentially, why aren't you progressives willing to compromise? Which makes the audience think, yeah, why aren't these progressives compromising? When the reality is they have compromised. They wanted 10 trillion. So to give you an example, Sunrise Movement here that was pushing for this and had lawmakers on board, why Sunrise is demanding 10 trillion in investment over 10 years. So they go on to say here that in the last year of World War II, America spent 40% of our GDP in 1 year on the war, equivalent to 8.5 trillion in 2021 alone. So Sunrise Movement here isn't even asking for, 8.5 a year. They're asking for 10 trillion over 10 years. So already in what they're asking for, they're already kind of compromising here. but they're saying, hey, back in World War II, we spent what is equivalent to 8.5 trillion in 1 year. So that went down to 6 trillion, went down even further to 3.5 trillion. And Joe Manchin wants even more compromise. The media framing on this discussion is so out of whack. Why aren't they going to Joe Manchin, who, by the way, let me just first point this out. Joe Manchin told the White House the child tax credit must include a firm work requirement and family income cap in the $60,000 range, Axios has learned. These demands would dramatically weaken one of Biden's signature programs. So has any mainstream media reporter asked Joe Manchin, how can you think kids whose parents make $30,000 each a year, how can you think they aren't worthy of assistance when you are worth at least $7 million and you gave your own kids jobs? Ryan Grimm here, Manchin's own children, runs the coal company Manchin launched as a state senator, and 2 got a job at Mylan run by Manchin's friend, cornered the market on EpiPen, and got a golden parachute of $30 million. Now he's insisting on work requirements for child tax credit. Why isn't the reporter out referencing this, asking Joe Manchin, how can you possibly require a work requirement for this child tax credit when you yourself,
well, you could do like I did, just give your kids a job. That's what you need to do.
That isn't the framing.
I'm not in position to give my kids a job.
Why don't you support cuts to the climate crisis?
Well, pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
Ridiculous. And so, and the obvious point here with this budget bill, but before I get to this next clip, is just look at it. Yes, there are great provisions in this budget bill, but it is not the Bernie Sanders agenda. There is no Medicare for all. It already is a compromise just based on what is in it. To ask even more compromise from the only people who have compromised is completely absurd.
And the other side hasn't
now,
compromised.
Let me get to this last clip where Jamal Bowman and Cori Bush add even more context to this whole discussion.
Again, and I'm making the argument that Joe Manchin is making here because he's not sitting here, but he would say 1.5 trillion isn't crumbs.
We're paying for 1.5, first of all. So we have the offsets. This is key.
Tell Joe Manchin to come to my district.
That's right.
Tell him to come to my district. Tell him to meet with me, and I'll take him to see what happens when you give a little of something, and you expect people to live off of that. Because what'll happen is that 1.5 trillion or whatever it turns out to be that he wants, we can't expect anything. We can't expect other investments, other big investments to come right after that. It'll be, oh, we did something for you.
We spend 7.6 trillion on the military alone every 10 years.
Yes.
And it's okay for us to spend that money. No one bats an eye.
Nobody complains about that.
3.5 over 10 years, that most of it is paid for on a bottom-up economy to target those most vulnerable, and we have a problem with that.
Can you imagine a CNN morning show hosted by Jamal Bowman and Cori Bush? How much better that would be? you have here the way these questions should be framed from the perspective of people that actually need help. So the media's job is supposed to be out there representing the interests of people, the public at large. But oftentimes they don't do that. They're more focused on drama and ratings and defending corporations and the wealthy. Now, some of it is intentional, some of it isn't. It's simply the company they keep. So when they're around lobbyists, when they're around people in power, the wealthy, then they take on that worldview, and then they think that's the way that most Americans view things, when obviously it's not. But that's why I also mentioned in my video yesterday how the media should be out there asking people, how would these certain provisions help your life? Like a mother who can't afford to go back to work because she has to take care of her child. How would universal pre-K or investments into childcare and the child tax credit, how would that help your life? Or talk to a senior who can't afford dental. How would expanding Medicare to include dental, hearing, and vision, how would that impact your life? But instead, when they do these out in the field reports, it's usually talking to Trump supporters. How about talking to people that actually need help and want to see these provisions? As you look at polling, everything in the budget bill is supported by the vast majority of Americans. So there is a lot of content out there ripe for CNN or any other cable news outlet to actually go and discuss, but they don't do that. Instead, they're focused on defending the wealthy and focused on drama and various fights. But the last point here, I want to bring up this from CNBC here. Just one child tax credit payments reduced financial anxiety for 56% of families. So when Cori Bush mentions, as she mentioned it in that clip, if you do pass, a crumbs for people, then lawmakers will think, well, we already did something for you, so stop complaining, which is why they are fighting to pass something substantial that people actually feel. Because you're not going to have, and if all you care about is winning elections, voters are not going to come out and vote for you if all you gave them was crumbs. They have to feel some actual impact in their lives. So by extending, for example, the child tax credit that people will actually feel going on over the next 2 years and 4 years, then that will be more likely to help people to realize, hey, this party, this administration is actually helping my life. My life has improved now because of their investments in the child tax credit or Medicare expansion or negotiating prescription drug prices, whatever it is, they will actually feel those benefits. But you're not going to feel the benefits if all people get is crumbs, or in the case of the bipartisan infrastructure bill, just a corporate giveaway. So,
and this guy is in Canada. Like a lot of the news I watch, and it be about American politics. If you want to get an accurate view of American politics, then watch the news from somebody outside of the United States, and then you'll see a much better view of the politics inside the United States. It's so crazy because over here we're everybody is so confused as fuck. But again, what irritates the shit out of me is that people ask for the details of this stuff, and then when I give it to them, they are bored to death. They don't, it's so crazy. It's so crazy. It's so crazy. What y'all want to watch is these sensational ass videos that y'all watch on YouTube or wherever the major news stations that's giving y'all these little nuggets and getting you all emotional. When somebody like me goes and starts digging through the damn details, you're bored. You're bored. Now you don't want to hear it. And again, that's how you keep falling back into the major views that they want you to have, because you haven't taken the time to look at this shit. And they know you haven't. They know you're not going to fucking take the time to look at this shit. So then they feed you this bullshit, and then you just accept that shit. And this is the reason why we can't make no progress in this fucking country, is because y'all don't want to fucking take the time to look at the fucking details behind the shit. It's boring. It's boring. Well, that's the reason why they keep fucking you. And they're going to keep fucking you. As long as you keep thinking that the important shit is boring and the sensational ass shit is what's important. Some shit that's got you all emotional. The data isn't going to have you necessarily emotional. You need to be looking for the data. I don't know how much of this I'm going to play. I'm getting tired and I'm putting y'all to sleep. So, and this guy is pretty dry and boring. I ain't going to lie. But there's some fucking details in here that's good as fuck. So I'm probably gonna wrap the video with a bit of his video. So
introduced over the last few months a notion that is relatively new to me too, that U.S. capitalism, something that has been an ascendant reality in the world for quite a while, has come to a turning point. After 100 to 150 years of remarkable growth and expansion, it has peaked, and that we are now in a phase.
Wait, let me pause that. Exponential growth. Y'all know that, you know, the structure that we live under, right? It's the capitalist structure, but it's all about exponential growth, right? Exponential growth. If y'all know what I'm talking about, economic terms. But think about that realistically. Think about that in reality. You know, exponential growth. You know, at some point, exponential growth cannot continue. It's not sustainable. And that's the system that we live under. The system that we live under is exponential growth, and that is not sustainable. At some point, we have to even out. The longer we keep from that happening, we got a crash coming.
Phase of considerable long-term decline. I don't say that with any pleasure or with any sense of satisfaction. I say it because it's crucial to help us understand where we are and how we can make this phase of our existence as a nation and as a planet less dangerous and less frightening than it needs to be. Okay, let me give you then two statistics about a declining system. The first, something in the news these days that you all know about. One of the richest countries in the world has just lost two 20-year wars to two of the poorest countries in the world. That cannot be coincidence. That cannot be happenstance. That's about fundamental changes going on around us that we would be better off thinking about and taking into account.
Can't speed
The
this
second
up.
statistic you likewise, I suspect, already know. The United States has roughly 4 to 4.5% of the population of this planet. But even though we are one of the richest countries, and even though we have a well-developed medical system, we account for 20% of the deaths from COVID. These are remarkable statistics. We have the companies to make what it takes to cope with the virus. We have the trained personnel. We have much of what is needed, just like we have a highly developed military. But if your system is in a decline, then there are 1,000 parts that are moving in ways you wish they didn't and produce outcomes you wish they didn't too. It's a sign of system decline. Let me turn then to the updates for today's program. I begin with an acquisition by one of the largest investment companies in the United States, Moody's. They're very famous for providing ratings of companies' debts and stocks. Moody's. They just made a purchase for $2 billion of a company you probably never heard of, RMS. What does RMS do that led Moody's to spend $2 billion to buy it? Here's what RMS does. It models climate change risks for businesses that are worried all around the world that climate change, climate disasters, floods, droughts, fires, all those things we're all aware of now. How is it going to affect this business, that business? Is there a profit opportunity here I can exploit? Is there a cost I can avoid? RMS will tell you. And Moody's, guess what? They think that's a big business they want to be in on. So here's my comment. In a capitalist system, we can't get together, all of the businesses and all of the employees and our government, to deal with a problem that confronts us all. Collective action around this subject, very hard to come by. But meanwhile, individual companies want to be sure and spend big bucks to know how to avoid a cost and how to make a profit from the very disasters we as a community seem incapable of coping with. Tells you something about what a private economic system does. I want to turn next to the infrastructure. You know, that bill that the Republicans and Democrats have been fighting over for months. But I want to talk about what's at stake. Infrastructure, roads, bridges, harbors, all of those things we probably don't think about, but which are crucial. And I want to make sure everyone understands how and why they're crucial. I'm going to take the example of roads. If you don't maintain your roads and bridges, as we have not done in the United States, here's what happens. And engineers have done the work. The wear and tear on vehicles, cars and trucks, is worse if the roads aren't maintained.
That's common sense.
Every one of those little bumps, every one of those little potholes does its job on your undercarriage, on your tires, on your axles, on your car. Engineers have estimated that the poor quality of American roads is costing every vehicle owner $300 a year.
You can call that a tax.
Let me talk to you about that. Extra $300 is not just what you as an individual with your car have to pay, although it's quite a tax if you think about it, on you. But I want you to think about all the companies that can't compete in the world economy because they have a bigger cost than people in many other parts of the world who maintain their infrastructure.
Competition.
So when they give an estimate of what it costs them to produce something, they have to take into account that the trucks will go more slowly, that they'll have to spend more money to maintain or replace their trucks and vehicles and vans. It all adds up and is a very self-destructive mistake. And that leads me to the next point. People are complaining it's such an enormous amount of money. It's an enormous amount of money because we haven't done it year in and year out. We've neglected our infrastructure. Had we done it along the way, which every sane person knows we should have done, it wouldn't have been this big amount of money we're now confronted with.
At some point, we got to spend the money.
To understand what infrastructure
At some point,
means.
we got to spend the money.
So why have we been neglectful? And the answer is it's our capitalist system. It's really not hard to understand. Put yourself in the position of a politician, any politician, a mayor, a governor, a representative, it doesn't matter. Here's what they're basically confronting. People and businesses who want a lot of services, and people and businesses who don't want to pay taxes to produce those services that they want. Putting the politician in an impossible position, you're judged according to the services you provide, and you're judged according to the taxes you don't collect. You know what the solution is. Partly it's borrowing money, which is why our governments are in debt beyond all words. The United States government is the biggest debtor in the world. But that's not the only solution. The other solution is, especially if you get criticized for having debts on top of everything else, is to just not do services where they won't be seen.
That's what I said.
Your infrastructure. Postponing the fixing of the road. Postponing the redoing of the bridge. Postponing the redigging of the harbor.
Down the road.
Whatever it is. It's built into our system to neglect it. And so here comes my sad commentary. Watching the Republicans and Democrats debate this bill is an exercise in pathetic. Why? Because the conservatives don't want to spend the money. Really? You want to fall even further behind the rest of the world by doing this? And the liberals, the Democrats, they want to spend the money.
Bridges fall
It makes
apart.
more sense to spend the money. But notice what neither of them is talking about. The system that produces the neglect. So even if the bill is passed and the Democrats spend a lot of money, nothing has been done to deal with a system that produces this neglect year in and year out.
And that's what Pat was
Here
talking about.
in New York City, we are constantly confronted with exploding water mains. And then the headline, the last time this water main was changed was 100 years ago. Oh, hello. That's why it explodes. It's an amazing story in which you don't want to see the systemic problem. You just want to make a fix, even if it's late and even if it doesn't address the systemic problem. My third update for this part of the first half of our show has to do with population change, and it's quite important to America's economic future. The 2020 census results are now in. The white population of the United States between 2010 and 2020 dropped by 8.6%, whereas the people of color rose, all of them. The biggest, the Hispanic, the second biggest, the Asian, and the third biggest, African American. African American modestly rose 5.6%, but white people dropped 8.6%, and Hispanic and Asian people rose in the double digits. Everything is changing. Let me give you an example. Texas. If you divide this population this way, roughly 40% of Texas is white, 40% of Texas is Hispanic, and 20% of Texas is black. Think about that and what that means. You can be sure the political parties in this country are thinking very hard about this. You know, our political parties are coalitions. At the top of both Republicans and Democrats are big corporations and our richest people. They're minorities in this society. Most of us are employees. We're neither rich, nor do we run corporations, nor do we own them. In order for them to keep control of this society, either of those two parties, they have to build coalitions with the mass of people. The Republicans have traditionally built it with businessmen and women, white people, religious people. You all know this. The Democrats have tilted more towards unions, towards employees, towards people of color, towards women, and so on.
You there, Pat?
But when the population changes, the parties scurry. The Republicans are terrified. They've built an alliance around white, and white is shrinking. What are they going to do? Well, you can see what they're doing. Two things. That's the strategy of the Republicans. Number one, get more of those shrinking white people to vote. Get them very excited. Get them riled up. Get them to be fearful that as they become a minority, they may get treated by the new majority the way they treated minorities the last 200 years. And the second thing Republicans are doing is cutting back voting by those people who might not vote Republican. It's across the country. And the Democrats, if I had time, are doing their share. The country is divided because of a desperate rush by these political parties to try to cope with a changing population that may shift our politics in fundamental ways.
Needs to.
We've come to the end of the first part of today's show. And as always, I want to thank all of you whose support makes this show possible each week. In particular, we'd like to thank our Patreon community and other regular monthly supporters. If you haven't already, please go to patreon.com/economic update or visit democracyatwork.info to learn more about how you of Economic Update today. I want to begin by talking about some comments made by Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, and echoed by several of the ministers in Boris Johnson's government. Here's what they said about the end of the U.S. occupation in Afghanistan. Boris Johnson wanted the world to know that he had known all about it. Months and months ago, maybe even years ago, he saw it coming. He had wonderful foresight, according to him. We have to say according to him because he was absolutely silent in any public sense about any of this, having been for a long time a well-trained, docile British leader. And he made it sound, as his ministers did, that they were against withdrawal, suggesting, in the words of others, that the British are prepared to fight right down to the last American, to hold on to these sorts of losing propositions. And I think there's something there that's important for us to talk about. The world is made up of powerful countries and less powerful ones, and there are crucial alliances binding them one to the other. And these losses in Iraq and in Afghanistan and the performance around COVID are making allies of the United States wonder whether they may have made a mistaken choice. Put yourself in the position of the British. They decided to cope with their problems, the problems of British capitalism at the end of its empire, by blaming and scapegoating Europe, voting to break from Europe, to leave Europe in the so-called Brexit phenomenon, and to throw their alliances even more dependent on, the U.S. And now the U.S. is withdrawing, and the British are forced to wonder, and boy, will they be silent about this too, whether they have climbed into the wrong alliance. And you can be sure
that's a
many
real
other
thing.
countries are wondering too. You know, the UK is much weaker than the United States. If poor countries in Asia, Africa, Latin America push against Britain, what's it going to do? It isn't the United States. It has nowhere near the capabilities. And then, too, having the war in Afghanistan in the news with the positions and the pictures, that was very useful to a conservative government in England who wanted to champion anti-immigration mentalities, especially in a country where a sizable portion of the immigrant population is Muslim and comes from South Asia. Now those headlines will be gone. The war is over, and the militancy against immigrants will be a harder row to hoe. The UK has problems. Cheering on the United States in that sad catastrophe in Afghanistan is not a smart move. It's not a sympathetic move. It ranges somewhere between sad and pathetic. My next update has to do with something also in the news a great deal. Long supply chains. Here's what that phrase means. Over the last 40 years, American corporations increasingly relocated out of the United States. And they did that for very simple reasons. Profit was the main one. And here's the second one, profit. And now the third one, you guessed it, profit. They could pay much lower wages in China or in India or in Brazil. Not only that, but those were the growing markets in the world. The United States was a quote unquote mature market, which means it isn't growing very fast. But the markets over there were. So by moving to China, you got a twofer. You got cheaper workers and a fast growing market, which every graduate of business school knows is where you're supposed to be. So they left. And instead of getting the parts for some company in Chicago from Tennessee or Indiana, you've got them from Bangladesh or Shanghai. Or, in other words, long supply chains are not a mystery. They're a direct result of the private decisions of American corporations to make more profits by producing far away parts or all of what they sell. And they didn't want to deal with that vulnerability that comes with a long supply chain. And so we see problems arising for U.S. capitalism. Remember one we saw a few months ago now, that funny angled ship in the Suez Canal that got stuck. And suddenly all the things we need in the United States that come from Southeast Asia and pass through the Suez Canal couldn't do it. It turned out it was vulnerable. You know, you could have handled that if the companies that were now vulnerable had made sure to dig that canal a little deeper than it used to be and make it a little wider than it used to be and to establish the ways to handle a stuck ship. They didn't want to spend the money out of their enhanced profits. So they neglected it, just like they neglect infrastructure, just like they neglect all the ecological side effects of the investments they make. Well, they didn't protect their long supply chains. But don't blame the supply chain or the weather or the Suez Canal. And here's the one that's getting the attention now. In the mainland of China, which is the country upon which long supply chains depend the most, they're having what is called in the American press a resurgence of COVID. And as a result, they have shut down one or more of their major ports, thereby blocking the supply chain because it's frozen. The ports aren't working. Well, now let's look at that because it tells us so much. First, I want to make sure we all understand that the media in the United States talk about surges in China, and they use the same word for surges here, but they have nothing to do with one another. I'm going to use the date of August 10th, which is when I looked at these statistics. That was a time of a surge. How many new cases happened in the People's Republic of China on August 10th? Answer, 111. That's right, 111 people were diagnosed with new cases of COVID. On August 10th in the United States, the number of new cases diagnosed was 162,000 new cases. All right, let me be sure you all get this. China had 111. The United States had 161,000. Calling both those things surges gets you the same insight as referring to a flea and an elephant as animals. It's not wrong, but it is real close to what we always used to call lying. But the Chinese, with 4 times the population of the United States, they have a lockdown policy, what we do not do in the United States. They close it down to prevent it from becoming anything like what the United States now accepts as routine. And so they shut down the port, and our long supply lines are a problem. And let me be clear with you all what the problem is. If the goods don't come here, meanwhile, the United States is filling the world full of new money, you're going to get an inflation. The scarcity of the goods that can't be supplied are adding to the pressure for prices to be raised because goods are scarce on top of all the money chasing those goods. So it's going to affect us by producing an inflation, which of course makes the inequality of this country worse because poor people are less able to protect themselves against inflation than rich people.
And when the inflation
the world
happens,
is connected. You
they're going to say
escape.
it was because of the
and
bill.
The long supply chain conversation,
the infrastructure bill, the reconciliation bill.
Allowing private corporations to pursue their profits, no matter what the fallout, no matter what the social costs, without them taking any responsibility for any of it. In fact, there's a bunch of these companies using the excuse of supply chain problems to raise their prices, even if they're not affected by them. The last update we'll have time for is about a particular company, but the story is powerful, and so I wanted to share it with you. In several American cities, there is a chain of gourmet specialist butchers. In fact, they call themselves craft butchery, whatever exactly that means. The name of the company, Fleischers. I found this amusing because the German word for meat is Fleisch, and a Fleischer is the butcher. So either these folks were originally German or they're playing a Germanic trick on all of us. It's an investor chain, very profitable. And here's what happened back in July of this year. Some signs appeared in several of their shops. They're both on the East Coast and the West Coast and perhaps elsewhere too. Some of the signs said Black Lives Matter, and some of the signs said LGBTQ+. And apparently there were workers in many of these butchers who were partial to having those signs in the window. One of the major investors, a big real estate developer from San Francisco, gave a call to the CEO of Fleischer's Craft Butchery, a man named John Adams, I kid you not, John Adams, and told him that as a major investor, he wanted those signs removed. And so John, dutiful CEO investor, had them removed, or he tried to. The workers then did something interesting. The workers said, no, you are not going to remove the signs. When he insisted, they quit. On July 23rd, they walked out demanding the return of the signs. Walking out meant they withdrew their labor. And once again, the capitalists learned that you can have a beautiful shop and spectacular tools and fantastic raw meat. But without that butcher, you got nothing. You're not going to make a nickel in profit, which is what you're in the business to do. And the big investor wrote an apology letter, but it was too late. The workers weren't ready to go back. They felt unappreciated. As of this report to you, the stores are still closed. Not clear whether and how they will open. Why do I tell you this story?
Power of your labor, bro.
Power? Not really. Yes, the workers had power. They always have the power. Those of you listening to me who work for a living, you have that power too. What I want to leave you with is this thought. Suppose that power were used in yet other ways. Suppose that power was the worker saying, you're not going to pay us $25 an hour, making $80 an hour for the work we do. No. And in fact, you're not going to make anything because we're going to run this business in a different way. We're going to call it Fleischers too. It'll be a worker co-op, and we will collectively do the work, get the profits ourselves. What do we need the capitalist for? That might be a day when workers' power translates into the kind of system change somewhere most of us know we need. Thank you very much for your attention. I hope.
I know I'm boring the shit out of y'all. These details matter. Details matter, y'all. Take the time and dig through the details so you can know what the hell you're passionate about. Thank y'all for joining. Thank y'all for being here with us. And even though I didn't feel good, I'm still here for y'all because I feel like, I have a schedule trying to build this channel. And the day I don't show up when I'm scheduled is going to be the day some people were trying to check me out and then they're never going to come back again. So even if I don't give y'all necessarily the best content, I'm still going to be here whenever I'm scheduled for unless there's something, circumstances that are beyond my control. But thank y'all for joining. Thank y'all for being here and all. I'm going to wrap it. I'll play a couple songs to wrap it up. Peace and love, y'all.
Dime qué tú quieres, papi.
Yeah, man. That's hot shit right there, man.
So what we gonna do? We gonna dub that?
Yeah, man, let's do it, dog. Let's get it done, dog. You know what I'm saying? It's hot shit.
Hey, say y'all load that down right quick, bro. I got a little message or something, you know what I'm saying?
Hi, this is Dr. Nicole calling from Fort Plaza Hospital to inform you that Catrell Williams has died with multiple gunshot wounds to the head at 4:45 a.m. For further information, you can contact the hospital at 713-2.
Man, these niggas fucked up. Oh my God, yo, fucked up. Black bandana, finger on the hammer. You won't see these apes go bananas. Ride with the heat, ride with the heat, ride with the heat, ride with the heat. Yeah. Black bandana, fingers on the hammer. You won't cause I'm a jail type nigga. Give a hell about hell, my nigga. Flame was doing fine till they killed my nigga. Now I gotta touch him up, rough him up, fuck him up, bucking stuff at his family. Killing his people randomly. Man, nigga gon' handle me. And my nigga, he ain't die in vain. I'ma ride on his name and shoot 5 in the sky. And them niggas who killed him must be ready to die. They could give me the chair because I'm ready to fight. Real niggas ride when they grown and they niggas is gone. Pull out a whole 40, taking scotch to the dome. Yeah, black bandana, fingers on the hammer. You don't want to see this tapes go bananas. I ride with the heat, ride with the heat, ride with the heat. You got die, motherfucker. Black bandana, finger on the hammer. You don't want to see this tape go bananas. I ride with the heat, ride with the heat, ride with the heat. You got die, motherfucker. That was my nigga since a little boy. When we was playing with them little toys. And now I got a kill boy. He was a killer gorilla. He taught me everything. Swear to God on my mother, my brother, the chopper sang. Hey, any nigga who I thought who did it. I'm coming, homie, and I'm coming to get it. What? I smell revenge is all in the air. I'm fucking at your kids cause the boy don't care. You ain't care when you took my nigga life. So I'ma show you what the pipe and the other side like. Yeah. Die, motherfucker, get the fuck out of here. See my partner gone, he got the fuck out of here. Cause the pussy niggas just like you. I'm a gorilla piranha like him, I'm about to bite you. Don't wanna fight you, hit you with that pipe, dude. Show you what the other side like, dude. Hey, it's not a game, man, you know what I'm saying? I'm a real nigga, you know what I'm saying? I believe a real nigga take my nigga, you know what I'm saying? I'm taking his nigga, I'm taking his family, I'm taking his sperm, I'm taking his kids, cause I'ma shoot him in the nuts, you hear me? Real gangster. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Hey, Jack on this one. What? On this one. Yeah. Peep it out. This that real hip hop. Hey, flaming shot. So you lames can stop. Cause we flaming hot. This that real hip hop. Hey, flaming shot. So you lames can stop. Cause we flaming hot. I'm about to expose this. What's the prognosis? They have medication, I don't know their diagnosis. You niggas is some roaches. You wanna approach this? The chopper stand for rage, so you can call it roasting. Man, I ain't posting. You flow in slow motion. Bang, bang, nigga, look how your chest is open. Main thing is gonna change when me and Flame take over the fucking game. The order 16 bars, and we know we go hard. Parlez-vous français, nigga, pass the cigars. Je m'appelle Flame, and your girl give brain. Chica, señorita, mira, I got dick. Little poquito, won't you go and swallow it? Dolce Gabbana, I bought it, now you model it. If your essay tripped, then I'ma hit him with them hollow tips. That shit hot flame, let's go and die. Just that real hip hop. Hey. Flaming shot, so you lames can stop. Cause we flaming hot. This that real hip hop. Hey, flaming shot, so you lames can stop. Cause we flaming hot. They jockers in the game like a MJ fadeaway. They gon' know my name, it ain't never gon' fade away. One bullet plus your face, nigga, that equals a takeaway. Bust through like a fullback, nigga, I'ma make a way. Taking shots, young nigga, like a Steve Nash breakaway. Me and Flame holding shit down like a fucking paperweight. Working hard to kill a nigga, homie, you could call it Labor Day. Use a bitch, homie, gon' drink on your haterade. Rapping about weather quarters that we blitz you like a quarterback. Where your daughter at? She into sacks like Warren Sapp. Make you fumble your nuts like you was hit by a cornerback. You want a battle rap, so act like you want it, black. Separate your nuts and put your brains where the cattle's at. Time to go, nigga, get your ass in the Cadillac. Lollygagging this shit talking, nigga, we ain't having that. Hip hop is coming back. Imagine that. It's that real hip hop. Flaming shot, so you lames can stop. Cause we flaming hot. This that real hip hop. Hey, flaming shot, so you lames can stop. Cause we flaming hot. Yeah. This that real hip hop. We won't flip flop. Watch when the album drop. That'll be something you cop. It's flaming chalk. Man, nigga know that we hot. We on the spot, nigga, and we not young jock. We got them Glocks pop. Aim and pop. Give me 3 seconds. Let me reload the clock. Tick, tick, tick. Goes the clock on the wall. Don't give a motherfuck that you all gon' fall. We all gon' ball. We up in the mall. Buying anything we see. We your enemy with the beef ready to creep. Chock, chock, and flame, flame. We plastic when I'm spitting off my tongue. It could get drastic, it could get nasty. Wrap you in plastic, show your boy that you ain't nothing but a bastard. Slash the actress flame.
Don't do them like that. They know that shit whack with them elementary raps. Why you even think about putting that on wax? Nigga, I'm spitting facts, the truth. When I strap up my black boots, my troops coming through.
I pop shots where your kids at. Put the Glock to your nuts and push your kids back. Like where your sperm, like burn you like perm. And I bet you learn you ain't fucking with a flaming jock, you're getting burnt.
Hey, hey, hey. And we ain't never heard nothing like this. We did that shit that y'all think that the famous do. And we did that shit. You know what I'm saying? We the shit, nigga. Hey, we ain't never heard nothing like this. We hot. And we not gonna stop. We not gonna stop. King Chaka.